Resolved, the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby enters into a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following. Section 2.2-3711. 1, discussion, consideration of interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. 1, AFD Advisory Committee, and 2, Alcohol Safety Action Program. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Into closed session. I have it at 7:15. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
So
Do I
moved.
have a motion, a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
At this time, I'd ask our County Administrator, Mr. Meadows, if you would lead us in invocation and a pledge of allegiance.
Absolutely. If you're able, please rise for a moment of silence, and then I'll lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. First up, we have presentation, recognitions, and awards, and I do believe we have Karim Khan from the Director of Library Services here for a presentation.
Thanks, John. Good evening. Thanks for putting me on the agenda. This is kind of a review of where we're at type presentation. It's not a budget presentation. Those are next month, and Craig does that. So, just going to run through a few things that you might find interesting. All things we've done and things we're going to do in pursuit of our goals of enlightening the community, overcoming barriers, leading with technology, building connections, developing great spaces, and strengthening staff. First slides are performance indicators. Even though the pandemic's not over, or the COVID-19 emergency, COVID-19 as an institution is not over, we've mostly recovered our key performance indicators. Did a little chart here that shows last year we were back up to 602 checkouts, and we're estimating this year we'll get up to 612. You can see these various increases that we're going to have, hopefully, this year. One of my colleagues said, why are passports going down? And the answer is that these estimates are based on the months that have already occurred this year, divided by 12, multiplied, et cetera. Spring is the busy season for passports. We'll do 100 more passports than we did this year. And also at the bottom are some key performance indicators that are just the flat numbers as of right now. Currently, we've got 40,000 card holders and a total collection of 217,000 physical items. If you count the ebooks and the e-audio, I don't know, it's like 1 billion or something. No, it's not really 1 billion, but it is over 1 million. So, I think one of the great things is that we are increasing our number of card holders, and we are increasing our visits fairly rapidly, which is a post-pandemic kind of thing. But some of it has to do with some of the innovations that we've had, which I'll go through here. We went fine-free on July 1st, 2022. We had previously ended fines on children's material in 2018. Because of the passport and copier revenue increasing, and copier revenue increases because we found a partner vendor who allowed us to make it possible for people to print from their wireless devices. Because of that, our revenue didn't drop even though we stopped collecting fines. The reality is most of the fines that were incurred were never paid. People just didn't come back to the library. Increased number of library cards, increased circulation. It's interesting how it was the same time that Blacksburg Transit decided to go no fares. It's kind of I guess it's a trend that's gotten past libraries now. We did get the mobile library in 2021. This past year, the mobile library served over 1,000 patrons at 197 scheduled stops. Our busiest stops are in the communities we're targeting that have lower income and dense populations, like Collins Estates in Blacksburg, Linden Green in Christiansburg. However, you can still find us from Lester's Gate to Pilot to Tuggles Gap, which is in Floyd, but is a long way away. And you can see there, it's also good for publicity. That's us in the Blacksburg Christmas Parade. And you can see the sock monkey on it. The sock monkey is kind of becoming a bit of a mascot. We're not sure that we're allowed to have it as our official mascot, but we do see children coming up and wanting to hug the side of the van, so that's a good thing. There are 2 senior residences on our regular schedule. This past year, we implemented the Meadowbrook digital sign. It's a new digital sign at Meadowbrook Library in Shawsville, installed by Time Technologies. We have noticed an increase in visits and program attendance. And, you know, since Eastern Montgomery is kind of a special place, it's kind of a special thing. We're not so sure we would want one in the middle of downtown Blacksburg, and we're not so sure it would add to the safety in the maze of roads right where Christiansburg Library is. But it seems to really be working in Shawsville. We also share the promotion if other county agencies or the Waldron Center or Eastern Montgomery Foundation, Eastmont Foundation have a message to send out. We're happy to share it. And it also is very unphotogenic. It turns into rainbows when you take a picture of it. We got a grant from the Public Library Association and AT&T this year for ongoing series of programs focusing on digital literacy. We're actually having them at all 4 branches, and we're still continuing with that as we speak here. Demand for classes like this had almost disappeared in 2016 through 2019, but demand is definitely back. We don't know if people let their skills go during COVID, or maybe more and more things require you to have some digital literacy. It's going very well, and not only that, it's gotten us and as well as our partners with literacy volunteers very used to the curriculum, and we're going to be able to continue these even when there's no grant money. Some other institutions have cut back on their tax help this year, I think mostly for a lack of volunteers. So we are hosting tax prep help both at Christiansburg and Meadowbrook. In only 3 sessions at Christiansburg, we've already helped 40 people file their taxes. And, you know, libraries traditionally call this tax prep help, but it's really sit down with somebody and file your taxes. When you stand up from those, you're done filing your taxes. We did adopt a new cloud-based calendaring system from SpringShare. It's much more mobile and user-friendly, and, you know, we really are, not only is it mobile-friendly, but you can see from the logs whether people are accessing it on computers or on mobile devices. Over 70% of the people are accessing it on mobile devices, and our old system was not at all mobile-friendly, and it was very hard to look at. Our new one also allows online program registration. It enables the public to book meeting rooms, community rooms directly, and it's wonderful at the end of the month to compile statistics on how many how many people attended programs and which subject area programs were more popular than others. It's helping us decide which programs are worth doing. And And you get to see that little bunny all the time because he's the one for story time. So. And the other interesting thing we've done over the past couple of years, and actually we started this almost just exactly when COVID started, is our Happy or Not kiosks, which you can see in each branch. It lets customers provide real-time feedback, and by that, lets us see what works and what doesn't. In 2022, we had over 15,000 evaluative responses, and we averaged a happy score of 91, meaning that only 9% of the people were unhappy at all. And so far this year, last year we were 92. So far this year we're 91. Hoping for spring to bring that up a little bit. It's very nice to have this because you can kind of get right down to the minute and see exactly when there were unhappy people. So you can see, oh, well, staffing was low, et cetera. And it also allows for open feedback. So people, if they wish, can put in the things that didn't work for them, but they can also put in the things that did work for them. And we find that staff, I was afraid that recording it, we'd have to go back and redact staff when they're called out by name, when they gave people service that caused unhappiness. But really, that hardly ever happens. On the other hand, on an almost daily basis, staff are called out by name for thank yous and compliments. And it's very, it is motivating for staff to know that they get the thank yous from people. Moving on. The library is always, one of our goals is building connections, and our community partners really let us do things that we wouldn't be able to do other ways. After the pandemic, it's great to be back with our daycare, after-school care, and school partners. And so far since we started the STACK program with the Virginia Department of Health, the libraries have distributed 18,254 free COVID testing kits as a partner in the STACK program. That's a lot of kits, and we'd like to think that's had an impact in the community. VDH is one of a number of community health partners, actually. And just as an example, a year and a half ago, they came and said, hey, Sustainable Blacksburg came and said, hey, we'd like to work with you on some lunch and learn programs. And we thought, well, lunch and learn programs are great, but nobody ever comes to them. But all right, let's see how it goes. And so we've had 8 lunch and learns with 154 attendees on all sorts of environmental topics there at Blacksburg. And it's really been a very successful partnership. Monina Hall, working with them, she got to the point where she joined the board of Sustainable Blacksburg. And it's been very successful. And we have a number of partners where it just grows from our initial ideas. Sometimes when we have unmet needs or when the opportunity arises, we apply for grants and awards. In 2022, we got thousands of dollars from our own friends and from our own foundation, some money from the Library of Virginia that was specifically sent out, and as well the PLA workshop. We are always eagerly looking for grants. I've got two in the hopper out there right now being judged. So, as you guys know, because you passed the capital improvement plan, we've got some capital improvements in process and planned. The Blacksburg Outdoor Improvement Project, which will give us an outdoor space to do programming at Blacksburg, as we have at Christiansburg and Meadowbrook, is currently funded, and Colley Architects is working with the county's general services engineering people to get that done. Hopefully spring 2024, fingers are crossed. Christiansburg renovation and expansion is on the books, funded beginning in 2025. And we'll keep asking for Blacksburg. That's a tough place to expand on that lot. But on the other hand, nobody wants the library any place but in downtown Blacksburg. So. Just quickly, some of the challenges we face. Cybersecurity, we do manage our own IT infrastructure, and we kind of have to because it has to equally serve our people in Floyd County. Just the growth in cybersecurity threats increases our risk. So we're currently in our 2-year project to work towards compliance with the NIST, National Institute of Standards, cybersecurity framework. It's a fair amount of work for our IT staff, but we think it will pay off. And we did have a cybersecurity issue. It wasn't with one of our things. It was with one of our 2 email providers, Rackspace. And when it first came up in December, I was like, man, we should use a bigger company. And then I looked them up, and they're a $4 billion company. So we do try and adopt a model of using software as service where possible, because having our systems in the cloud, as our library catalog system and our ebook systems gives us the advantage of we've got, very large companies taking care of the security who have not just a security officer, but a whole team of security officers. And it seems to be working well. All I can say is you never feel safe with cybersecurity, but the best you can do is best practices and taking advantage of scale. And we believe we're doing that, and we're planning on structuring it and documenting it even more. Another challenge is state aid. State aid is a big part of our budget, and the state aid formula is advantageous to being part of a regional library because part of the state aid formula is population, but another part is geography. And to some extent, the benefits for Floyd County are they get the scale of associating with Montgomery, and the benefits for Montgomery is that we get state aid partially based on the amount of square miles in Floyd, most of which is, which is not as densely populated as Montgomery. This is the second year where the General Assembly ended its session without a budget. It makes it challenging to plan when we do not know what state aid will be next year. But we're very grateful for state aid because we do know that there are many other priorities for state government. And we're extremely grateful for support from our municipalities and from the boards there. There are lots of competing interests and lots of things that are great importance to citizens' lives besides the library, but we work really hard to get what we do done. Even with the generosity of the library, of the municipalities, we do have unmet needs that may not even reach the budget process. We do have increased demand and have expanded services without an increase in FTEs for a while. And the Montgomery Floyd Regional Library Board of Trustees has asked on the Montgomery side for reconsideration of some library positions up to level MC14 to ensure that compensation and classification reflect the role frontline service play in delivering public service, that positions are classified equitably across county agencies, that positions requiring similar education and experience are compensated similarly across county agencies, and that library staff compensation is sufficient to retain and hire talented and motivated staff. But if it's not, we do try and make it a very pleasant place to work. After all, people can point at the sock monkey and point at their 92 scores and the comments from patrons that say, really, thanks, Alyssa did great story time today. And that is a great thing. And, I think that most of my staff really does wake up thinking, oh, it's going to be a good day at work today. And I think that that's a very key to operating a good organization that patrons can really take advantage of. Does anybody have any questions?
Good. Well, thank you, Karim, for the presentation and giving us an update what's going on in Montgomery Floyd Regional Library. Also wanted to congratulate the Jesse Peterman Memorial Library on their 50th anniversary. What a great milestone that was. And we'll go around the room to see if any supervisors have any comments or questions. We'll start off with Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't have any comments or questions. It's really good to see you.
Good to see
It's been a while. Thank you very much for the presentation. I really, really appreciate knowing this information and seeing how things are rebounding with your key performance indicators. It's really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bone.
It's good to see you. Thank you for your presentation. Also, thank you for your leadership with literacy volunteers of the New River Valley board member, as well as, doing programs with them. I have 4 questions. On that little tablet that they vote on, positive feedback are the greens, and you don't rate them, the second green one doesn't get,
Oh, it does. Yes.
how does it work?
Well, it is the Happy or Not, the company that does it. Their machines do all the actual rating. But yes, there's very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, and extremely dissatisfied. And when that score of 92 for the month comes up, that is based on basically weighting a very satisfied as a higher satisfaction than a somewhat satisfied.
Is the very satisfied 100?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. A perfect score would be 100, which we sometimes see at Meadowbrook early in the month, but eventually somebody grumpy's going to come in.
Gotcha. What was that bubble picture? All the kids in the soap bubbles.
That was Bubble Brigade, which is a very popular summer program that we have at the branches, wherein they come and turn on a lot of bubbles. It's part of summer reading. So,
Are you still distributing COVID tests?
yes, we are. COVID tests are available at all branches. We did have just about this time last year, there was the state ran out or mishandled their supply chain issues. And so we actually developed a instantly updatable for each branch, because we were in the situation where Blacksburg would have some and then they'd run out, so people could come to Christiansburg, and it's instantly updatable. Fortunately, we haven't had to use it for a long time.
And if someone wants one or some, how many can they get at once?
So what we would usually do is if they want more than one, we would have a dialogue, how many people are in your house? Mm-hmm. And we pretty much have reached the point now where if somebody comes up and says, I need 10, we just hand them 10. Mm-hmm. The state seems to have a very stable supply at this point.
And then my last question is, do you measure remote access, like ebooks and stuff like that?
So ebooks are definitely included in the circulation stats.
Like often I use the library, but I don't go there,
So-
Would you call that a visit?
We would not, and this is an interesting question. So ebooks are definitely included in the circulation statistics. So when we say circulation is 600,000 in 2022, that includes ebook checkouts and the e-audio, e-magazines and everything. But it doesn't count as a visit, and this has actually been discussed with the state library, who gathers our statistics through a methodology called Bibliostat, because it almost should count as a visit. It doesn't go into our website hits because it's not our website. So really the only way we track use of ebooks is if people check them out. But that's certainly one way of tracking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
I don't have any questions. I appreciate you giving the presentation and all the good work, and thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Yeah, thank you for all your service. I'm sure most citizens think that libraries are still just a place you go, get a book, and leave. But it's very good that you have all those programs. I'm sure they help a lot of folks out. So thank you very much. I don't have any questions.
Supervisor King.
I have no question, but thanks for coming in this evening.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I don't have any questions, but I just have some comments. Libraries are such a vital service to our citizens, and what I was really glad to see, I love that Happy or Not kiosk. idea. And I love your calendar system. I think that really would be really helpful to you all as you go forward because, so many people want to use the library. So I was glad to hear about that. And I want to congratulate you on all of your grants and awards because those are very competitive. And for you to have received that many, that says a lot. And the final thing is the cybersecurity. I'm glad that you all are really on top of that because that's such a threat nowadays to everything. So thanks for all your hard work and thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And again, the library, one-stop, unlimited possibilities, and it is quite the community hub, and we appreciate all that you have done and your staff. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. We appreciate the support from all of you, especially our liaison in the church.
My pleasure to serve.
Thank you.
All right, up next, public hearings. We have several tonight. The first will be a joint public hearing, VDOT Secondary Six-Year Plan for FY 23-24, and that also includes the secondary system construction budget for FY 23-24. And I think we have Mr. David Clark approaching from VDOT. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. I'll make a few opening comments about how the process works for the public hearing and what we're here to discuss or hear from the public about, and then maybe a bit of follow-up after the public comment on what the next steps would be. So, yes, this is the this annual public hearing on the secondary road construction program. This is how the county wishes VDOT to spend the construction funds allocated over the next 6 years, and specifically for next year. Next year's budget looks to be a little over $500,000. $438,000 of that is earmarked for unpaved roads. Those are most of the roads in your plan. And then there's a $98,000 allocation that comes from the telecommunication fee that's collected by the state. And that's when telecommunication companies locate their utilities on VDOT right-of-way. There's a charge that comes along with that. That's collected at the state level and distributed to all the counties based on their percent population of the state. It's a simple formula. Montgomery's share comes to $98,000. That can be used for anything construction-wise on the secondary program, whereas the unpaved road allocation has to go to unpaved roads. Because it's so much more, we generally tend to put that $98,000 on an unpaved road project. But if there are other projects that the county would like to do, we can combine that with the safety money that we get, which is about half of that. So you get another $40,000 to $50,000 in safety funds. And we can do things like things that would be a little bit beyond the maintenance type of things that we would charge to our maintenance budget. I think we've got one where we're looking at a subdivision road that was not taken in years ago that we'd like to bring in. We can't bring it up to current standards with maintenance money. It's been built. So we would use construction funds for that. That's where that would come from. That's also where rural addition funds come from. And so moving on to the draft priority list, it's basically last year's priority list, upgraded just a bit. And the first item on the draft priority list is countywide items, and this is where that $98,000 comes from, and that's traffic services, which would be signs, guardrail, any kind of engineering work we have to do on a project, obtaining right-of-way, things like that, and rural additions. Now, rural addition, it gets a little bit confusing because we've got a lot of programs that have either have the word rural in them or start with an R. We got rural additions. We've got rural rustic roads, and we have a revenue sharing project. They're all completely separate. Rural addition and rural rustic are really just design standards. There's no extra money for rural rustics or rural additions. Your rural additions come from your secondary construction funds. So do any rural rustics that we do. A rural addition, though, is taking a private road, a road that's currently private, and upgrading it to current state standards and making it a new VDOT maintained road. These roads have been around for a long time, quite often. And we've explored rural addition options or projects in the past. They tend to be difficult to do because all the easy ones had been done, and you get people that are living on these private roads that like them as private roads. They want them as private roads. That's why they moved there. And sometimes we have a hard time getting the right of way for them. So that tends to be an obstacle in getting a rural addition project completed. But VDOT works with county staff on the standards, what's required to bring it in, and on getting that donated right of way. The next project, priority 2, is Craig Mountain Road. We did a section of Craig Mountain Road a few years ago. There's now about a third of a mile gap in there, and we added that a couple of years ago to close that, and we can get that done this summer with some of our state crews. Number 3 on the list is Poplar Hollow Road. We're just now starting some of the engineering on that, and that's a fairly long. The drainage is going to be challenging on that, and that's going to be an expensive project. It's over a mile long. It'll cost over $1 million. Next on the list is Taylor Hollow Road. We're very close to finishing the slab. We've got a good portion of the funding for Taylor Hollow Road. I've slipped it down behind Poplar Hollow just to let it wait until we can really figure out and nail down what we're going to do in the curve. There's a curve in there just before a small bridge. There are a lot of options on doing that. Again, when the road was built, it was built in the easiest place possible. If you haven't been out there, there's this big, wide, sweeping curve because it climbs. It's the part that climbs from the creek level to Lester's Gate Road. And there's several ways to do it, and you want to do it right because it's our one chance of getting Taylor Hollow Road right. There's a lot of people that live out on the end of it. There could be more if this road is built. So there's a lot of things we kind of have to work with the planning department, maybe in Montgomery County and other county staff to figure out what the best approach would be. It could easily move up once all that has been figured out. And then number 5 on the priority list is Paul School Road out in the Reiner area. That was added last year. We went ahead and added the whole thing. It's 2 miles long. It's going to be quite a project. In the future, we may look at splitting it up into 2 projects, but right now, we just went and put it on there. It's going to be over $2 million to get that 2 miles done. So that's it, that draft priority list. As I mentioned before, the construction budget for next year is $537,000. Most of that will be going to, it'll be split fairly equally, really, between Craig Mountain Road, starting with Poplar Hollow, starting the funding on that to get some engineering done. A little bit more on Taylor Hollow, but Taylor Hollow is pretty much already funded. So that's where we've got that 537 split out, 30,000 for countywide items and rural additions, 250,000 on Craig Mountain Road to finish that little bit, 157 to Poplar Hollow, and 100,000 to Taylor Hollow. So that's my presentation. Like I said, that's the draft 6-year plan. We'll hear comments after this, and then the board can decide how to move forward. Any question on the process before I step aside?
Certainly. Supervisor Bone?
You said Taylor Hollow Road is already funded. Is it just the bridge that's funded, or the curve is also?
Pretty much the whole, the rest of the paving part of that has got the money on it. We don't have to, it's not waiting because we need money. It's waiting because we're not really sure what we're going to do yet. So the low water slab, because there's a bridge, and the bridge was already replaced last year as well.
What about the edge shoring up that road needs?
That would just be maintenance. We'll keep working on that. That won't be tied to its relative place in the 6-year plan. The maintenance will obviously still have to go on Taylor Hollow, especially out on the end part where it gets close to that creek.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd?
I have just recently had a request to add Bobcat Lane, and I know I've asked to have that added before. Could you speak to that a little bit, just to explain why it's not on this list?
I believe Bobcat a state road currently? Yeah, it's just because It can be added. It's as eligible as any. I don't think there's a traffic count situation. I'd have to look up the traffic. To use this unpaid road fund, it does have to have more than 50 vehicles a day.
And I think that was one of the problems before when I asked, was
Yeah.
the traffic count wasn't up enough.
I'll double check that.
Okay.
I might be able to get it here in a few seconds.
Okay,
On my
appreciate
phone.
it.
Yeah, but that would be the reason I think it wouldn't be on.
Okay.
Any other supervisors? Supervisor King?
Thank you for being here. Going through this on Paul School Road, you said $2.25 million.
It's a roughly a 2-mile road. Yeah.
So does that mean we're going to have to save up for 4 years to get that one done?
Yeah, pretty much. It's going to be a
So
while. Well,
once-
it is a 6-year plan, so it's at the end of the 6-year plan. So yeah.
So once all these other projects is done, we won't be allowed to put no more on there if we're going to do Paul School Road.
Correct. That's going to eat up. That's going to take a lot of the money. So I probably wouldn't advise adding another unpaved road to the 6-year plan part. Now again, that wouldn't affect your rural additions, but another unpaved road to the plan until maybe next year when we're a little further along with Poplar Hollow. We'll get another roughly $500,000 next year, and would assume we're going to get that money in the 6th year. So we'll need some place to put the money in that 6th year for that.
Okay, and one more thing. Got some email from a couple of people on Opal Lane. Said y'all have talked to them.
We have, yes.
Could you give us some kind of update on that?
Opal Lane is a private road currently, and it's been on the county's rural addition list for several years. They've come and spoken here at the public hearing before, I believe, and we've taken a preliminary look at it. It's not a long road. We haven't done a real detailed estimate yet, but it would probably fall in the same general estimate as any unpaved road would be, which would be $100,000 for a 1/10 of a mile.
Thank you.
It's a quarter of a mile. How long is it?
I believe it's actually less than 2/10. It's over a 1/10, but less than 2, I believe.
And what was the traffic count?
That one does not have to have the same traffic count as a current state road. It just has to have 3 residents
Okay.
to qualify. And, yeah.
And so for less than 2/10 of a mile, it would cost $200,000.
Roughly, yes.
And could be done in a year or something like that.
Yes. Yes. Because the fund the county's been putting the maximum amount in your rural addition account, so to speak. You're only allowed to put 5% of your secondary road allocation in there. So it takes a while to add up. But for a long time, we were looking at Big Vein Road in McCoy. We, in fact, did some site distance improvement there. We couldn't get the right-of-way for that. There's been several that we've had a really difficult time getting right-of-way. We've looked at Cornbread, couldn't get the right-of-way for that either.
And so how much do we have in it now?
Probably close to 3.
So we could do it,
Yes, the funds are there for it.
but it's not part of the 6-year plan.
It won't be part of it wouldn't be part of the 6-year, it wouldn't be in the priority list of
This
other
list.
roads. It would be a part of the 6-year plan, just as a rural addition in that very first sort of countywide
Bucket of money.
priority list, or the countywide items would be rural additions, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. For instance, we just completed one in Giles County, and it doesn't affect the progress of any of the other roads in the plan, because they use the unpaid road money generally. The rural addition funds have to be taken bit by bit from that telecommunication fee.
Great, thank you.
So, Mr. Clark, I'm sorry, Vice
I just
Chair
have
Biggs?
a question out of curiosity. Can you tell us, how much does it cost to pave 1 mile of road now?
Like an overlay, I don't know, like just to overlay a regular, currently, I don't have those. I could figure it out, but we do overlays for maintenance with asphalt, and we also do it with like a tar and gravel or surface treatment. Surface treatment's less expensive generally. To overlay plant mix, it just depends on the type of surface you're putting down or how much you're doing. If it's really in bad shape, you got to do a lot of patching first. That figures into the cost. If it's uneven, it tends to use a lot more tonnage than you generally would. Sometimes it takes more than a typical inch and a half. So paving on the interstate is different than paving on a secondary road.
Right, right. But it's expensive.
It is, yes.
Thank you.
A couple $100,000, I would say, for, a mile of road for plant mix.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair Biggs, that was the question I was going to ask, is what does about a paved road, about a mile, cost for that?
Again, that's just, overlay. That's the overlay part of it. When we do our estimate for building a rural rustic road, we figure 100,000 for a tenth of a mile, because that,
So about $1 million.
yeah, $1 million a mile.
$1 million
Not
a
not
mile.
just an overlay. That's why I would say like an overlay, a couple $100,000 maybe for a plant mix overlay. That's like your best stuff. If you're building taking a mile of gravel road and turning it into a VDOT road, we're talking about doing a lot of drainage work, replacing pipes, doing ditches, getting right of way. There's a lot more involved in that. A simple overlay is much less than that. 20% of that.
Very good. Any follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Clark, for the presentation.
Okay.
We will go ahead and open up the public hearing for the 6-year secondary road, the joint. The first, I have a list of speakers, and then after I call the list of speakers up, if anyone else would like to come forward, they may. You will have 4 minutes to address the board. You'll state your name and address. The first name on the list, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Richard Barber?
Thank you for having me. Is that good?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me here. Thanks to all the board of supervisors. I was one of the people who emailed you guys. Got a few emails back. Thank you for emailing back, Todd and Sarah Belvin. Yep, you did too, Sherry there. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, for coming out to our road. You saw our road, walked our road with us, saw the condition of our road and what we're in. But I know I've only got 4 minutes, so I'll just kind of get straight to the point. But I'm here to talk about the Rural Addition Program, and thank you, David, for going into some more detail for you guys to hear about that, how it's separate from certain of those other programs and what it's in. And request that we try and get moved up that list. Hopefully have you guys vote and make us number 1 tonight. That would be amazing. I know right now we sit as number 5 on that list, and soon to be number 4, so we're getting there. We're really close already. But we do have full support. So we do have every single one of our community ready to go. Some of them have emailed you. Others are about to speak here, and then others have given us some letters to talk about because they're not public speakers and they're scared to come in here and talk in front of everyone. But we also do know we meet all the VDOT standards. We've been out there with some representatives from VDOT where they've walked the road with us, and we meet all standards and can have the road completed. So we ask that you look at this list as a list of need, and our community is in need. These rural additions don't happen often. From my understanding, the last one in our county was over 15 years ago, so it's been a very, very long time. And we've actually been on the list for over 30 years. So I actually know this because I came here 3 years ago to petition to be on the list, only to find out that we already were from my neighbor Bob Klein, who after we moved in told me about this list and had tried to get it to work. But we had a neighbor who at the time did not want the road to be paved. So they wouldn't give up their right of way. They've actually moved away, and everyone is on board now. So we do have right of way. We do have VDOT support. So it is 100% a possibility that this money can be used and used for the county for some people who need it. Our road is very short, so it is only about 0.17 miles, as David explained, less than a quarter. I walked it the other day, GPS'd it to get an exact measurement, and I know that's not cheap money. So, I mean, we're looking at $200,000 to do something. But we do have elderly folks on our road. We do have a 30-year-old very special needs child that may need attention immediately. One of their families canceled tonight because the aide couldn't make it tonight, so she couldn't leave the child to come to speak. But this road gets bad. I mean, I've hopefully looked at some of those pictures and the potholes. That happens all the time. Anytime there's a road gets washed out, luckily one of our neighbors, John Lloyd, comes out with a plow and has to fix it out of his own good heart. We give him gas money, or actually he likes some vodka from time to time as donations for him to come out and take care of the road. But after we moved in, we even learned that the lot we lived on was a new house ended up getting built because the old house had burned down. Because in a winter storm on Opal Lane, fire trucks couldn't get up the road. And the neighbors literally came out and about 15, 20 years ago watched a house burn down. with the elderly, with the special needs child. It really would mean a lot to us to have peace of mind and support and know that in emergencies we could be taken care of. So that's our biggest need and why we're out there and need the road. We do have 7 total homes on there too, so I know he mentioned there needs to be at least 3, and it would be 7 homes that would be getting the paved road and access to be on the road. But yeah, please just think about it, and hopefully you guys vote tonight. All right, thank you.
Sir, can we get your address?
Yes, it's 1035 Opal Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have a Catherine Zammit, and after that, a Jose Barna.
Hi, good evening. Catherine Zammit. I'm also at 1035 Opal Lane, here with my husband Richard, but I actually have the letters of our neighbors who weren't able to attend this evening to read to you. I think one of them, hopefully you all received in an email from Constance Bowden. So then I have one from our neighbors, the Kleins, who we referred to, who have lived there for the longest amount of time. So this is from Robert and Billy Klein. They say, we will be out of town the week of March 13th through 17th and will be unable to attend the Rural Edition meeting. We are requesting your support to elevate the priority of construction of Opal Lane in Blacksburg to the top of the list. Our 2 prior occasions over the past 35 to 40 years on 2 prior occasions over the past 35 to 40 years, Opal Lane has risen to number 1 on the construction priority list, but on both occasions, the project faltered at the last minute due to a change of mind in a property owner. In the past year, property ownership on Opal Lane has changed, and now all current owners agree and are enthusiastic about the prospect of a decent Opal Lane road. The Opal Lane project is less than 1/4 of a mile in length. During the first 2 attempts to get Opal Lane built, the Board of Supervisors and VDOT were very helpful and cooperative. Both groups did a wonderful job guiding our residents through this process. As you can see from the pictures, which Richard included on the email that he had sent to you all last week, and I did not bring them today, you can see that Opal Lane can become barely passable, sometimes totally impassable, especially during difficult winter months and after severe storms. We respectfully request that consideration be given to raising the priority of the construction of Opal Lane to the top of the Montgomery County Rural Edition list. We have been trying to get a new hard-surfaced Opal Lane road built since the 1980s, almost 40 years. We have been residents on Opal Lane since 1977. Robert and Billy Klein at 1075 Opal Lane. That was their letter. I have one more. This is from the Lloyd family. They live at 1048 Opal Lane. To whom it may concern, hello, as Opal Lane homeowners for over 30 years, we wanted to relay some of the reasons our hope to have our road paved. We have a special needs daughter that lives with us. She has severe handicaps, including inability to walk, speak, communicate, or in any way take care of herself. If there were bad weather, could an emergency vehicle come to her aid? We watched our neighbor's home burn down because emergency vehicles could not get to the house, so our concerns are valid. Maintaining the gravel road is an ongoing issue. It washes out after every rain and makes the road nearly impassable. It is even worse when it snows. No one can get in or out until we plow the road ourselves. Thanks for your consideration, John and Stacy Lloyd at 1048 Opal Lane. Thank you.
Have a Jose Barna. And then after that, William Price.
Handouts. I apologize, I only printed 10 since we're seven listed and 8 photographed. So I'll share mine with you at the end. I'm just here to talk about paving Bobcat Lane. I got like 8 different residents here with us. The annual average daily traffic is at 120, which is higher than 3 of the 4 that are currently on the 6-year plan. I've pulled that information back for the past 6 years, as well as right behind that chart included copies of me asking the county since 2019 to get it added. I guess I didn't come to any meetings. I just went to GIS to ask them for the addition. Haven't heard anything back until finally I heard from Mr. Shepherd this morning about the meeting. But as you can see, we are more than qualified to be added to the 6-year plan. It's a change of 350 feet over about that 0.4 miles, so that's about a 16% grade. So anytime there's any ice, sleet, snow, anything like that, it's unplowable. You just kind of let it sit there and wait for the sun to hit it. So, like I said, it's just a packet of information going back. There's been 9 different 6-year plans that have been discussed since my initial request. But for the most part, just wanted to bring it to your attention that we do meet everything. And I spoke with Paul Brown originally back in 2019 about this. And he said, yes, we were higher than all the ones that were on during that time back in 2019. And he said he's been asking about it as well. Not sure the particulars on that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The only clerical error on your 6-year plan I wanted to point out as well, y'all have Taylor Hollow tagged as Route 721 where it's 712. So just a grammatical clerical error for y'all. And that's.
Sir, if you could give us your address, please.
I am currently building at 3325 Bobcat. So with that, there's 15 lots with a bunch of people already living there, and there is currently 3 houses being constructed right now. So the numbers are only going to go up with a couple other lots for sale on the road as well. So appreciate it. Any questions?
Thank you. William Price?
Good evening. William Price. I live at 1405 Merrimack Road. And didn't realize we was having the road hearing this evening. But being over here and learning of that, here I am. I'll try to be brief. Maybe Mary will help me with some of my memory here, but I think it was about, she probably won't want me to divulge some of this, but I think it was about 30 years ago, we entered into an agreement for the improvement of Orwell Road. And in that agreement, we agreed we'd provide the right-of-way and do surveying, limited engineering. VDOT agreed they would pave it. That came about, and that was a good thing, because it was approved and occurred because of some emergency situations, much similar to what you've heard here tonight, one being of emergency vehicles and ice, and another was fire. Along with that, there was another agreement that we needed to have the petition signed by X number of our neighbors, and that was signed, and I recently found the file. Still have the petition. That agreement also provided for the improvement to the Haywood Lane entrance. And due to lack of priority and persistence, I guess, it kind of fell off of the radar, as did Merrimack Road. Merrimack Road was actually on the 6-year plan like 30 years ago. It fell off as well. I'm pleased that VDOT has been recently working on that road. In fact, I just recently gave a little bit of an easement to VDOT out there for some drainage. They've been making drainage improvements. There's probably 6 or 8 places on that road where the water drains across, freezes solid with ice, treacherous situation. They're working on that. We appreciate that. Of course, we'd like to see Merrimack Road back on the 6-year plan or back improved. The traffic has probably tripled in that 30 years. But tonight, I want to just talk more about Haywood Lane after I met with my neighbor last Saturday, not realizing that we was going to have this meeting tonight. This story began about 3 years ago. Again, one of the people living on the road, elderly gentleman who used to work for us, he and his wife slid in the ditch. Fortunately, she was seriously injured. Nobody was killed. After that, by my own initiative, I got an engineer to help me. We went down there and located the drain pipe further from the road because consistently the water had been washing out around this drain pipe. So with the help of a capable engineer, we located another pipe. We put in new pipe, and but it's still not adequate, and it does wash out. My neighbor asked me Saturday, when are you going to scrape a road again? And what are you going to do to get this? I thought we signed a petition. Well, we did sign a petition. And yes, I go down occasionally, scrape the road a little bit and do what I can. And so I know Mr. Clark was just thrilled tonight when I mentioned him. By the way, I've got a couple more projects that I want to mention. And the first one, again, would be Haywood Lane. I still have the petition. I think there was an agreement by the Board of Supervisors that they would put us on the plan to upgrade that entrance. I don't live on that entrance. I'm guessing there may be 5 or 6 homes there. Not a tremendous traffic, but it is a situation that needs attention. So, again, I bring it to the board. I'd like to get us back on a list for some improvements there.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you so much.
That concludes the list. However, if any other citizen would like to come forward, you have 4 minutes to speak on this public hearing for the joint 6-year secondary road plan. Seeing no one come forward, we will close this public hearing.
Just have a little bit of a
Oh, I'm
kind of
sorry.
a wrap up.
Yes, wrap
if
up.
you don't mind. Yeah. So you've heard some comments, some suggestions from the public. The board can do as it wishes. I will need a resolution approving our final priority list before the beginning of next fiscal year. So sometime in June at the latest. In the meantime, I can do some research into Haywood Lane and see what the story was with that, why it didn't get built. The gentleman that spoke on Bobcat Lane was correct in the traffic count. It looked up on VDOT's count, and a couple of years ago it had about 220 vehicles a day. So it does qualify and has a good bit of traffic on it. And then the board can do as it wants with its priority list. The priority list for rural additions is just a board document for your own. It's a working document. It's not a VDOT requirement to have anything like that. That's just something for your own information. The 6-year plan priority list, however, does have to be passed by resolution. The resolution does not need to contain a name of a rural addition that you wish to add. So you just have to decide. Let me know which one to start working on, and I can do that. And then that can occur before even the resolution of the priority list is done for the 6-year plan, which I need at the June meeting by the latest. So that's all.
Can I ask a question?
Supervisor Bone?
So Opal Lane doesn't have to be on the 6-year plan.
Correct.
Bobcat Lane does.
Yes.
And Haywood Lane is an entrance. It
We're
sounds
under.
like more
Yeah, I got to figure out what that is.
Yeah. What about Galleon Ridge? What is the
Galleon
thing?
Ridge?
Yeah.
That would be
That would be on the 6-year.
6-year plan because that's a current state maintained road between
Has there been a traffic count out there?
Talbot Road. There is one. I don't know. I'm sure it's got enough, especially the Mount Tabor end's got to have well over 50. Yeah.
But is it like 200? Does any?
I don't think it would be in that range. Yellow Sulphur was our highest at about 250. Actually, I didn't realize Bobcat had 220. It's good. I go back and look at older traffic counts because COVID messed up a lot of traffic counts. A lot of them went down quite a bit because people weren't getting out and traveling as much. So, but I don't know what Galleon Ridge, but I'm sure it's over the required 50. But I would guess it'd be in the 100 to 150 range. That's about, Taylor Hollow was about 180, I think.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up? So a working document for just the rural additions, and then a resolution before June for the fiscal year for the 6-year plan.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank y'all.
All right. Okay. Next public hearing, rezoning request Eagle Construction. The applicant requests a rezoning with proffered conditions for 1.35 acres from agricultural A1 to residential R3 to support the subdivision of a property into 2 lots for construction of a single family dwelling. Ms. Bree, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hopkins?
So as stated, this is a request for rezoning from A1 to R3. This property is located on Price's Fork Road, just outside the town of Blacksburg. Many of you are familiar with M&M Tire. It is actually adjacent to where that was located. So this is the property in question. You can see there was an existing dwelling. It has been removed and there is now one under construction. M&M Tire would be in this area here on the left. This is your zoning map. M&M Tire zoned community business. Everything around this is zoned planned unit development residential. That's the yellow. That's the preserve at Walnut Springs. The underlying zoning district in this area is R3 residential. And then this site is zoned A1. So as stated, the property is located adjacent to the preserve at Walnut Springs. Previous residential structure on the site was demolished, and it is planned to be used, the new dwelling that's currently under development, as a sales office display home. So the unit will be converted to a single-family residential use once the need for it to be a display home is no longer there. The applicant did seek to create a second single-family residential dwelling on the lot, but due to the lot size, it is too small to divide the property or to add a second dwelling. So they had to look at options for rezoning. After discussions with staff and looking at the PUD res rezoning with the underlying R3 district, the applicant did state that they felt the R3 zoning designation would be more preferred, and it actually aligned more with what they wanted to do. The minimum lot size in R3 is 10,000 square feet. And the setbacks are 25 feet in the front and rear and 10 on the sides. This is the proposed subdivision plat that was submitted as a concept plan. So this is, on the left is the house that's currently under construction, and you'll see that in some pictures here in a minute. And then they propose to basically split the property almost exactly in half and construct another house adjacent to that. So this is looking across the road from the North Star entrance to the property. You can see the house that's under construction. The lot is over to the right in this picture, and then this is the vacant lot that they would then be building on once divided if approved. Again, this is the house under construction, and this is the entrance with the vacant lot. And then this is the view from Price's, looking down Price's Fork Road. So this is, you can see M&M Tire in the distance here. This is going towards Price's Fork Elementary School. And the other picture is looking back towards Blacksburg. The applicant proposes to have a driveway connection for each lot. VDOT has reviewed the concept plan and the subdivision plat. They took no exception. They will have to get a land use permit once construction is started. The lot is currently served by public water and sewer, which is a requirement for the residential R3 zoning district. It does not lie in a FEMA designated flood zone. Full review of erosion and sediment control measures will be required at the time of plat and permits. Impacts to the school will be minimal since this is technically just the addition of one single family dwelling because there was already one on site. The property is located in the village expansion area, and it's further defined as low-density residential in Price's Fork. These are the comprehensive plan land use sections that we pulled out. Special attention to PLU 2.1, that's always our criteria for rezoning. So we always look at that to determine if we can even consider a rezoning request. Because it is located within a village, It met that criteria for number one. It does have public water and sewer, and then the road access does provide a driveway direct to Price's Fork. So this allows for additional residential units in the Price's Fork Village. It is consistent with the existing developmental patterns. It does utilize an existing infrastructure. There is limited transportation and safety impacts due to the small number of units. If approved, they do have to submit the subdivision plat, have that approved by staff, and then they'll have to obtain permits. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the request by an 8-0 vote. There was one proffered condition that the property shall be developed in general conformance with the concept plan prepared by Foresight Design Services, dated December 15th, 2022. Joining property owners were notified. We did not have any public speakers at the Planning Commission public hearing, and we have not received any inquiries regarding this request. With that, I will take any questions you have. The applicant and owners here, so they can further answer any questions that I cannot.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. We'll go around the room. Supervisor Bone?
No questions, thanks.
Supervisor Shepherd?
I don't have any questions.
Supervisor Fidzikowski?
No questions, but I missed the drone photographs.
Don't worry, you'll have some in a little bit.
I thought so.
Supervisor King?
No questions. Thank you.
Supervisor DeMott?
No questions, thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Hopkins, no questions. Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up for a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up on the list, but if any citizen would like to come forward, they'll have 4 minutes to address this public hearing. Seeing no one come forward, we will close this public hearing on the rezoning for Eagle Construction.
And Madam Chair and Board, I wanted to mention on the previous public hearing related to the 6-year road plan, there are no plans this evening for the board to take any action on those items. That will come back to the board at a later date with information. So for those of you that may be here on that topic tonight, there won't be any action taken tonight on that issue. But just wanted to make you aware of that.
While you're bringing that up, Chair Blevins, if I could ask Mr. Meadows, do we have a list of the rural additions, a priority list? Could we get a
Somewhere, yes, and
Okay.
we will get that.
Yeah, it'd be good to have a copy of that again, too.
Yes, I heard several things as a result of our discussion this evening that we need to get back out to get the board fully informed, so we will get that out.
All right. Next public hearing, rezoning Love's Travel Center. This is a request to rezone 32.963 total acres from agricultural to general business to allow the property owner to request a special use permit to construct a travel center. Ms. Hopkins again.
Thank you. So this application actually has 3 different components. It involves a rezoning and then 2 special use permits. The first is the rezoning to general business, and then that rezoning would then allow a special use permit for a travel center. So during the presentation tonight, I'm going to take those 2 items and kind of combine them together and then take any questions or comments you have. The third is a special use permit for a comprehensive sign package, and I'm going to talk about that separately and then take any questions you have as well. So this site is located in the eastern portion of the county off of the Interstate 81, exit 128. You can see it here. This is the interstate and this is North Fork Road. This is an aerial view of the property. The Shell station is located across the street here, if you're familiar with that. And then we have a park and ride here at the intersection of Peddler and North Fork. This is your zoning map. It does have general business zoning across the street and then across the Interstate 81 interchange. And this site is zoned A1. These are drone footage of the site. You're welcome. Thank you to Public Information for going out with us again. They have been so helpful in all of these requests and have been great to accommodate us. So as you can see here, this is the park and ride. The interstate is in the background here. This is the Shell station, and then this is the proposed site. And then this is looking the other direction. You can see the Lancer truck stop on the hill here. with the Shell Station and Interstate 81 going this way. So the rezoning of 32.963 acres to general business is without any proffered conditions. So what that means is we tend to take a look at all the other allowed uses. That way, if it did not move forward as a travel center, we could then see what would be allowed and how intensive that would be so we could evaluate the request. Truck stops had previously been considered in the past by looking at different components. So if you wanted to do a travel center, you might have to get an SUP for the convenience store with motor fuel sales, and then your restaurant was by right. And so we just kind of piecemealed it together. In 2020, we did an ordinance revision to change that, and we added that definition for a travel center and made the requirement that it should be located within 1/4 of a mile of the interstate exit or interchange. So the applicant does request a special use permit for the travel center on the property. Elements include a 10,200 square foot convenience store with a 3,020 square foot attached fast food service restaurant, and then a 12,670 square foot tire shop and service center, a 4,800 square foot truck wash facility, fuel cells for automobiles and commercial tractor trailers, a fenced-in dog park, truck scales weigh area, and 172 parking spaces for passenger vehicles, tractor trailers, and recreational vehicles. This is the proposed site plan. You can see the convenience store here in the center. Recreational vehicle parking is in this area beside the dog park. This is your passenger vehicle fuels. This is your truck fuel area, and the scales are located in this area right here. And then this is your service center with your truck wash bays. This is all truck parking around here. These are the elevations for the proposed Love's truck stop. And this is the proposed tire center that's supposed to be on site. The applicant did conduct a traffic impact study and evaluated the impacts on North Fork Road. North Fork Road does have a current ADT of 1,100 trips per day in this area. The existing conditions at the stop-controlled intersections operate at a current service level B. If you remember, that goes from like A to F, with A being the best and F being the worst. Full build-out of the Love's development is expected to generate 6,736 trips per day on a typical weekday, with 398 trips of those during the AM peak hour and 395 during PM. And so those trips are inbound and outbound together. The ADT along Interstate 81 is 51,000 trips per day. This development is not anticipated to change the ADT on Interstate 81. The traffic impact analysis indicated that a right turn lane is warranted for the project. So that would basically be in this area here. And that does consist of a 200-foot taper storage and 200-foot storage lane. The TIA did not find that a left turn lane was required. So that would be coming from Elliston towards the interstate interchange. At full build out, the controlled intersections are expected to operate at a level C. This again is more drone footage. You can see the site here. So the turn lanes would be in this area because this is looking back towards the interstate. And you can see the North Fork River here. This is the Peddler Road and North Fork Road intersection with the overflow parking here. It's park and ride lot. So the site is currently served by public water and sewer. No improvements to the current system are needed. However, they may have to relocate a line based on the location of the right turn lane. That will all be determined during site plan review should this be approved. So portions of this site do lie within the FEMA flood zone area, and that was indicated on their concept plan. But this is the entire area that's located in the flood zone. It's flood zone AE. Basically, that requirement means if you have a structure in that area, you have to elevate it to 1 foot above the base flood elevation. No structures are proposed for this project to be located in this area, only the truck parking. However, if they have to do any type of fill work, they will have to do a flood study to ensure that the base flood elevation is not being increased. So the total coverage of the lot is proposed at 43%, which is substantially under the 85% allowed in general business zoning. Excuse me. The preserved open space and landscaping is located in this area for the site. They expect to maintain most of the vegetative buffer, and that is also vegetative buffer that's located within that flood zone area. They will have to do a stormwater management facility, and the one thing to remember is those facilities not only deal with the quantity of water that leaves the site, but it deals with the quality as well. So it will go into the stormwater management facility. They have some type of filtration built in there before it's released out at a slower rate. A full review of those facilities will be done at site plan review if approved. So the proposed use does transform this vacant site into a 24-hour, 7-day-per-week business use. There can be a substantial increase in noise from the various components of the travel center. However, there are not many adjoining property owners in the area with residences. We do have an adjoining church located behind the property, and then most everything else is of commercial nature in that area. Maintenance of the existing vegetative buffer and additional landscaping will help reduce some of that noise. The proposed lighting plan does include lighting in the parking areas and then, of course, on the structures, but it will have to be oriented to be downcast and be dark sky friendly. The property is located in the village expansion area. It's further defined as mixed use in the Elliston-Lafayette Village Plan. And here are a couple of the comprehensive plan sections that we pulled out. Again, it does meet the requirements for 2.0 to be considered for rezoning. So the request for rezoning without proffered conditions did require that we look at the proposal in context of all the possible uses. Staff did determine, along with consultation with VDOT, that the travel center was probably the most intensive use that could be done on this property. So it has been evaluated at the greatest potential impact. The rezoning is supported by the comprehensive plan goals, and it does utilize existing infrastructure and provides adequate and safe access to the public road. The proposed general business zoning is compatible with the surrounding zoning land uses, and the rezoning and special use permit provide a viable use for a currently vacant parcel, and it is within the quarter-mile proximity to the interstate interchange. So staff does recognize that there is a shortage of travel centers along Interstate 81, and we've had this discussion before. Many of these truck drivers are being forced to pull over on the side of the interstate. On exit ramps, entrance ramps, rest areas are backed up most of the time. People just cannot get in. So this development will allow some alleviation to that issue. However, I don't think it's going to stop it all from occurring, because I don't think one is all we need along the interstate corridor. The development does increase the number of vehicles using the exit 128 interchange, and it does increase traffic along that portion of North Fork Road, so that should be given consideration. The proposed right turn lane does alleviate some of those issues, however, to allow people to get into the site and then exit the site. The location of the entrance provides adequate site distance, and existing buffers and proposed landscaping will help mitigate those impacts to the adjoining property owners. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of the request to rezone to general business. They further recommended approval of the special use permit to construct the travel center with the following conditions, and I am going to go through these for benefit of everyone that is here. The sites will be developed in general conformance with the overall site plan prepared by CESO, dated 8/22/22. Improvements to North Fork Road shall be installed during phase 1 of construction, so that means that'll be one of the first things that are constructed. Nothing on the site can open until that is complete. Fencing shall be installed along the entirety of all property boundaries, excluding the boundary adjacent to North Fork Road. So that would essentially be the front property line. The fence along the property boundary of parcel ID 015950 and the entire length of truck parking areas shall be an opaque, non-chain link fence with a minimum height of 8 feet. And that is to protect the church that is located behind there. There is a significant vegetative buffer between the two, and the river goes up between there in some places as well. So there is a good buffer, but the fence just adds additional protection. The fence along the property boundary adjacent to Peddler Road shall be opaque non-chain link with a minimum of 6 feet in height. And the fencing surrounding the proposed dog park shall be black chain link with a height of 6 feet. A pet waste station shall be provided in the area of the proposed dog park. Trash receptacles shall be provided in the parking areas located on the site at a number of 1 receptacle per 15 parking spaces. That's to hopefully cut down on any trash that would occur in that area. The applicant shall ensure that trash, litter, and debris does not accumulate on site. No inoperable vehicles may be stored on site. No exterior storage of automobile or truck components or parts, tires, or other repair items is allowed on site. And any exterior lighting installed on the property shall be designed to prevent glare and comply with dark sky friendly standards. Cleaning of interior trailers, vessels, and truck tanks shall not take place on site. So that was a concern of the Planning Commission. They wanted to make sure that the truck washing was for the exterior of the trucks only. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning and special use permit request by a 7-1 vote. We did have 2 speakers in attendance that spoke during the public hearing. They had concerns regarding traffic, impact to the adjacent church property. Concerns were also raised regarding noise and trash due to the existing travel center that's located on the other side of the interchange. And with that, I will take any questions you have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. We'll start off with Supervisor Shepherd.
Just have one. So the improvements to North Fork Road, is that widening and that's it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's widening and putting in the turn lanes.
Okay. All right. That's all questions I have.
Thank you. Supervisor Fidzikowski.
No questions.
Supervisor King.
Just got one question. Could you go back to the parking spots?
To the parking spots?
Yeah.
Sure.
I just want to see how many ADA.
Are you talking about the summary?
Ma'am?
The summary or the concept plan?
Just how many you're going to have, you're suggesting on that lot? Huh?
79.
Yes,
79
I believe
trucks.
it's 79 for the trucks. Yeah, so it's 10 here.
I think it's your next screen.
There you go.
There we go.
82 standard, so 78 and 4 ADA, that's passenger vehicles. 11 for recreation vehicles, and then 79 for truck parking.
Is 4 enough?
4 for ADA?
I mean, you're going to be that close to the interstate.
Correct. So I do not regulate that through zoning. That is regulated through the building code. If they have to add more, they will be required to do so at site plan approval.
Could it be suggested?
It could be suggested. It could be a condition of the special use permit as well.
I mean, you know, it's that close to the interstate. I just want
Correct.
to make sure there's enough.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't have any questions right now, but I reserve the right to ask questions later. Thank you very much for
Welcome.
this presentation.
Supervisor Bone.
The church also was concerned about the glare, and I know in one of your later slides, you say dark sky as it relates to neighbors. Can you explain that as it would relate to that church?
So our ordinance actually has built-in lighting standards. So it can only be so many candle feet at the property line. So during the site plan review, they will have to submit a lighting plan that actually shows those candle feet from the light. So it'll show like a light pole and it'll say this is how bright it is here, this is how bright it is here. And they'll have to take that all the way to the property line so we can ensure that they're within those standards. And those automatically require that they be downcast to prevent that glare.
So that has to do with the lights or
Correct.
lamps? It doesn't have to do with the sign that's
It's-
illuminated?
It is any lighting on the property.
Right, so how tall is that sign, that big love sign up there?
It is proposed to be 190 feet.
Okay, and anybody know what kind of lumens it's projecting?
I do not have the answer to that, but the applicant may.
Is there?
But it would be included in that lighting requirement.
How many candle
feet it can be at the property line, yes.
So what does that really mean for a sign?
I mean, it's the same as a light.
I get the downward, but the
Correct.
sign is not downward.
It's not downward, so they would still have to show how far it lights up from its proximity.
And is there a way, the engineer in me, you could actually put something between the sign and, probably 30 feet away from it down to block all the light from hitting that church, probably.
I am not an engineer, so I do not know that. But hopefully the applicant
Sure, it wouldn't be
would.
cheap, but it would
Right.
solve the problem of
Right.
any light.
Hopefully the applicant can speak to that because they are here this evening.
Okay, and then the other question is the church in any one of your drone pictures?
Yes, I believe it was.
I think the one picture of that road going up parallel to the highway was, yeah, that one. Is that the church back there?
This is the church.
Okay. And where
And
is the
this
big,
is the proximate location of the sign.
of the 190 sign, how far up would that 190-foot sign go? You don't have any idea?
What do you mean, how far?
From the ground, 190 feet.
It's 190 feet tall.
But I mean, on that picture,
Oh, I do not have any idea. We are going to talk about signs here in a little bit. And so there are some visualizations of those signs when we get to that section.
I live in the county, so deer are all over my property. An 8-foot fence is not going to prevent a deer from jumping it. Is that of any concern whatsoever for deer to get in the?
I am not sure. We would have to ask the applicant if they would be concerned about that.
Okay. Do they have any charging stations for Tesla or fast chargers for electric vehicles?
I believe they will have some electric vehicle charging stations. We will have them confirm that because they did not call those out specifically on the plan.
You mentioned the flooding
Yes.
potential. Have they talked about filling?
They have not talked about filling. They did contact us about what would be required just for the parking area to be located and if we would require a flood study, but we do not because parking is allowed within the flood zone.
And, but it pretty much if the whole flooded area actually occurred, it eats up a lot of their parking.
Correct. Yes.
Is there any requirement for notification of truckers? Do not come and park, kind of thing?
We do not have that requirement, no. I'm not sure how they would get that word out.
On the VDOT signs.
On the VDOT signs.
But I don't think that's possible, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if VDOT would do that, but we, that would be a question for them.
Mm-hmm. Getting back to the 190-foot sign, could the location be on the other side of the property, therefore it would be less likely to shine on the church?
I do not know. I will tell you with the balloon that they flew to determine the visibility from the interstate, I do not think they would get good visibility if it was located on the other side. I'm not sure that they would get visibility at all especially if you were heading northbound.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Vice Chair,
I have one last question, and I jumped over it because the RVs are allowed to stay up to 30 days.
Correct. They have stated they allow the RVs no more than 30 days.
And
And they do have an RV dump station on site.
that's not a, what do you call it? It's not a trailer park, obviously, but 30 days is a really long time. You know, I imagine most, they park overnight and then
Yes.
they move on. But is there any special zoning of long-term parking up to 30 days?
We don't really have anything beyond the 30 days. We do regulate recreational vehicles, but they can only be on the site for 6 months. So the 30 days is
Yeah,
more restrictive.
okay. That was my last question, I promise. Thank you.
But you can add a condition to the special use permit as well.
And what could that condition be like?
The
No more than
condition-
7 days, no more than 3 days?
Correct.
We could add that.
Yes, enforcement would be the difficult part for that.
But they could have a
yes, you-
sign up.
Right, right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
thank you. Vice Chair Biggs.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Hopkins, on the, there are only 11 spots for those recreational vehicles, is that correct?
That is correct.
And the maximum of 30 days?
Correct.
Okay. And then the tire center, will that be open 24/7? Do we know?
I do not know if it would be open 24/7. I would imagine it would be. It's not a full service center, so it's not something you're going to take your truck there that needs 2 or 3 days worth of work. It's something like, I have an emergency, I blew out a tire, I need a new tire, or I have a nail in my tire, maybe I need an oil change, something like that. So it's for quicker service. It's not intended to be a long-term service.
Very good. And then this site will be required to meet all the stormwater storage requirements. I know that there's some steep areas there. Are we concerned with erosion other than the vegetation?
Yes, they will have to meet all stormwater quality and quantity requirements for this site. So they'll have to do a full SWIP, I believe is what they call it, which is an analysis.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up questions from the supervisors? Vice Chair Biggs?
Sort of following up on that 30 days, at the other Loves, and probably don't know, but how do they, can RV stay there 30 days? Or do you know?
I think that is their business model. They did state this is new to them. So they are just now adding the recreational vehicle component along with the dog park to their facilities. So I think it's a new adventure for them. I do not know if they've had any issues at their other sites. I know later on when I could start going through the sign section, Justin and myself visited 2 Loves when we were on our way to an executive board meeting recently, just a couple weeks ago. I did not see any issues for RV parking. Most of the parking spaces were not even full with RVs. I think the most we saw was 4 at one of the locations, and you could tell they were just kind of stopping off, and they had not set up camp, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Very good. Certainly, Supervisor DeMont.
Sorry. Just a quick follow-up. When you went through the presentation, I assumed the tire center is for trucks only. Is that a correct assumption?
Correct.
Okay.
It is not for passenger vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Any other follow-up? Okay, Ms. Hopkins, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will open that up for public comment for the public hearing. I have some names on the sign-up sheet. Each citizen, as I call you up, you'll have 4 minutes to address the board. You'll state your name and your address. The first name I have is Rick Shuffield.
On the pronunciation, I'm actually with Loves, and I just signed up. I thought this was part of the record, so I'm happy to answer any questions now or sit back down and come back.
Okay, if you'll come to the mic, sir, so we can hear you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, are you Mr. Shuffield?
I am, and I actually may have inadvertently put my name down there just as part of the record. I'm with Loves, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have about the project in its entirety. I also have Sarah Harville here, who is our lead civil engineer, who can answer any technical questions that you might have. So I can speak now. No presentation. She did a great job with it.
Okay, very good. Well, let me go through the list, and then if we have follow-up from supervisors, we'll be happy to
Okay.
ask those questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Sarah is Harville, is that correct? Okay. All right, very good. Then how about a Danny Reed?
Thank you. My name is Danny Reed. My address is 1756 Peddler Road. My concern is the church adjacent to this property. I'm one of the trustees, and I'm representing the church. And I think the parcels we're dealing with is 150523 and 015950. And those are the parcels in between the church and the truck stop. And I think at the other meeting, we were talking about an 8-foot opaque fence along the entire boundary between the truck stop and the church, and which is parallel to Peddler Branch. My question is, I do have some questions, is what type of fence? Is it chain link? Is it wood? Or what the durability of the fence? The second question I have is I think we had maybe talked about this in the Planning Commission, but I don't believe we did. Talked to the representative from Love, but we were talking about a couple rows of evergreen type trees like a Leland cypress or something that would grow tall fast that would give us some kind of a buffer and a zone between the church and that truck stop. Personally, we're not happy with the truck stop. We would oppose it, being the congestion, the noise, the traffic, and those things. My last request would be the sun reflection. Since the church is on the western side of the truck stop, is when the sun is setting, you'll have reflection like off of trucks, buildings, and those type things. And I think one supervisor had mentioned maybe a little deflector from that huge 190-foot sign that's actually going to be overlooking the church property. And so those were some of our concerns, because currently we have one truck stop across 81 that's really, it's a crime scene and a trash dump. And if you can go by there and drive by and look at that truck stop, you'll see the trash, okay? And we just don't want that in our vicinity. We have kids that we're trying to protect, and we also have the watershed, the water that we're also trying to protect. So any help you can give us, we'd deeply appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I do not have anyone else sign up for the rezoning Love's truck stop, but if any citizen would like to come forward. I also have for the special use permit, Mr. Reed. I'm sorry, come forward.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Dan Morelli, and I live at 4050 Flatwoods Road. And crime scene, I love it. That is exactly right. What's going on at Lancer right now? I don't see any positive to this for people who live in that area. If you've traveled near exit 128 on a Sunday evening or a Friday evening, you know that 81 is a bottleneck right there. Adding 1,000 trucks a day, getting on and off the interstate, some of them northbound, where there's an uphill, a slight uphill, and there's always congestion up through there, is just going to be, it's just going to exacerbate an already bad situation. Not to mention the fact that a lot of us who live back off of 128 have kids who may be traveling across the interstate to school to try to get to 460. And having trucks constantly coming in and out of there is going to be worrisome. I'm going to worry about my kid, that's for sure. And it's going to dramatically increase the amount of time it's going to take to get over to 460 from that area. Pollution is another issue that I'm very concerned about. Just in a aesthetic fashion, the Lancer is a dump. I mean, it is, I know that you guys have been trying to get them to clean it up. At least that's what I've heard. And they have made some efforts, but it was basically to bush hog the whole thing down, and now there's no trees. Now we just see naked back ends of trucks with the same, well, not quite the same amount of trash, but still plenty of trash there that, of course, blows across the road down into the North Fork River. And I'm sure Love's has a better record than that, and I'm not trying to say that it would be the same, but across the highway, there's a waterway right behind that proposed site. And a fence, I don't think, is going to, be the answer to that. I think not putting something that commercial in that spot is. I see no benefit for people who live in this area. So I'm going to ask you guys to vote against it. On another note, the 190-foot sign will be visible down North Fork Road as far as Bowers Farm at least, maybe around the corner from there too. Anyways, please vote against it. Thank you.
All right, so that, we do have the second, okay, sign-up sheet. Hello.
My name is Kara Gangloff. I'm a truck driver, and I live at 3360 Oronto Road in Elliston. There's one thing to consider, if you can put that slide up of the lot, the trees, and the creek, and that is that those 79 idling trucks are going to be there on Sunday morning, and the sound is going to bounce off of the mountain, which is right there. The amplification of that mountain, of that sound, is going to be enormous. Those services at that church will not be heard. Also, adding 5,000 more vehicles per day on North Fork Road is gigantic. I don't know how that road would ever accommodate that much traffic, and I'm really concerned that they're going to turn, as I wrote in my letter, the wrong way and try to go down North Fork Road, and out of 5,000 vehicles, the percentage that might do that is going to increase dramatically, and the sheriff's department is going to be called all the time because a big truck can't go down North Fork Road towards Blacksburg. It can't make it. There's also a small sign that you can't see at night that indicates that. And then finally, a fence behind Love's would initially be effective, but fences will be cut. I've been to hundreds of truck stops. The fences will be cut, they'll be knocked down, the trucks will back right into the fence, it will go into the creek, the trash will go everywhere, you'll have dogs, animals. It's a mess behind a travel center. And Love's is really good, and they're really going to try to control that, but they can't. They only have so many personnel that are able to get out there and clean that lot and to police those trucks. So I agree with the other two speakers, and I think you should oppose the rezoning for that truck stop. Thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. So there are actually two sign-up sheets because there are two public hearings. So we will close out that first public hearing, and I'll open up the second public hearing for the special use permit, even though I think it was a lot of the same information. But I do have two names. I have Sarah Hareville and then Danny Reed.
I think I've already expressed my opposition.
Sir. Yes. Okay. Since they are two separate, I want to give you the opportunity that you can address for the separate public hearings. Would anyone else like to come forward on that public hearing? Then we will close the special use public hearing for Love's Truck Stop. The next public hearing will be for the sign, special use permit for Love's Truck Stop comprehensive sign plan.
Yes, so as stated, part of this request included a comprehensive sign package for consideration. The package they submitted does exceed the signage allowed by the zoning ordinance in 3 different areas. They are requesting an increase in the maximum total of freestanding signs allowed on the property. We would allow a high-rise sign and then another freestanding sign. It exceeds the maximum height of the freestanding signs allowed on the property, both for the high-rise and the requested freestanding sign. And it exceeds the maximum square footage of total signage that's allowed on the property. We do only allow 180 square feet of signage on a general business zoned property. And that is giving it a 20% increase for multiple businesses to be located on the property. So the sign ordinance does allow for the provision for them to request a special use permit. That request can be submitted to the BZA or to the Board of Supervisors. Generally, it would come to the Board of Supervisors when it accompanies another rezoning or special use permit request, so they can run everything through concurrently. So that's why they are here today. The applicant does request a total of 3 freestanding signs over the 2 allowed in the ordinance. The high-rise sign located near the rear of the property is meant to be seen from Interstate 81, so it can pull traffic off the interstate. And then a freestanding sign located along North Fork Road near the development entrance. And then an additional freestanding sign is located at the back at the truck weigh station. The comprehensive plan sign package also proposes a total of 1,401.23 square feet of additional signage. It exceeds the maximum allowed square footage of 180 square feet on the parcel. These signs include the Love's branding signage that would be located on all the buildings and the fuel canopies, the Arby's branding signage, the Speedco branding signage, which is mainly located for the shop building, but they also do include it in their freestanding sign, and then directional signage that's located on the property. Normally when you see directional signage, they're real low, low to the ground, normally about 4 square feet, and so most of the time we don't even count those, but these are much larger. They are requested to be about 8 feet in height and 32 square feet, so they do need to go into the counted square footage for the property. The majority of the proposed signage will be illuminated either externally or internally. So staff does recognize that the sign ordinance does place a lot of restrictions, especially for a development of this size with this many things going on. We do feel that the criteria has been met to consider the special use permit, but we feel that the stock package does not consider the unique characteristics of the site location and also the fact that it's within one of our village areas. Staff did evaluate the individual components and made its recommendations. Our goal is to balance their marketing branding needs and reduce the visual impact that folks are going to see along North Fork Road. Topography and the site size were also considered when staff made the recommendations to the Planning Commission. So this is the high-rise sign. It is proposed at a height of 190 feet, which exceeds the maximum allowed height of 40 feet. So it's comprised of 4 individual signs, the Love's, Arby's, gas price signage, and then the Speedco. And the proposed square footage of the signage is 1,167.88 square feet, which does exceed the maximum allowed 500 square feet. So the applicant did go out and fly a balloon. You have seen similar things with our telecommunication towers. They'll go out and put a balloon up so they can see the height, and then they use that to superimpose the image so you can see where the sign is visible from different points along the interstate. Westbound is actually southbound on Interstate 81, and you can see 1.5 miles from the exit, you can start to see the sign. 0.3 miles from the exit, you cannot see the sign at all. 0.2 miles, it is still not visible. And then at 0.1 miles, it becomes visible again, and then this is the visibility at the exit. and that is going from Roanoke to Christiansburg, so that's southbound. Northbound on the interstate, 0.7 miles from the exit, the sign would be located right here and is not visible. 0.6 miles, you can see the very tip of the sign here. 0.5, you can see it in this location. 0.4, you can still see the tip, and then it disappears at 0.3 and 0.2 miles from the exit. And that's because of the way the curve is along with the topography. So the unique topography of the project site, along with the adjacent Interstate 81 corridor, did warrant an increase in the maximum allowed sign height. Staff did recommend no changes to the proposed high-rise sign that was included in their package. This is the freestanding entrance sign that was included in the package submitted to staff and reviewed. It's a proposed height of 25 feet, exceeding the maximum allowed height of 12 feet. It's comprised of the 4 individual signs, and the proposed square footage is 166.33 square feet. If you remember, the total square footage allowed on site is 180. So staff did consider the visual impacts. We also went out and took a look. We got this with some more drone footage. You can see the Shell sign here. The Brabham sign is barely visible in the back, but it's in this location right here. And the Brabham sign is approximately about 30 feet in height. That is a non-conforming truck stop site that has been there for many years. The Shell station sign is about 15 feet in height. So we considered all of that, and we did recommend a reduction. We recommended a total height to be 15 feet and to reduce that to 90 square feet in area. At the public hearing, the applicant did present this monument sign, and the Planning Commission did find the monument more visually pleasing. It is what they actually recommended in their submittal. However, it is 23 feet long and 12 feet in height, and sometimes that's a little hard to visualize, but you can see the ceiling tiles, they're 2 feet piece, so you figure that's 11 and a half of those tiles long and then 6 of them tall. So that is a fairly large sign. It did reduce the overall square footage that they were requesting for their freestanding sign. So this is the freestanding weight scale sign. The proposed height is 21.5 feet with a square footage of 114.98. We did consider the fact that a tractor trailer has to go under that sign, so it does have to have an increased height. We also looked at the location of the sign, and it's towards the rear of the property, so we're not even sure that it's going to be visible from the road. We think it's only going to be visible to those truck drivers that actually go to the rear of the property, so we did not make any recommended changes to that. This is the directional signage. We did consider the need for the signs to be legible to both automobiles and the trucks. They are larger in area. They do sit up higher, so you want to make sure they can see those. They have proposed them to be 32 square feet, which is 8 by 4 basically, and 8 feet in height. Staff did recommend that they be reduced to 16 square feet and 6 feet in height. The Arby's directional signage, we did not recommend any changes to. Those are fairly small and insequential. This is the proposed fuel canopy signage, which we did not have any proposed changes to. And then this shows the signage that's proposed for the front of the building and the rear of the building. And then these are the side elevations. When you look at these signs individually, the proposed signage totals 547.06 square feet on just the convenience store building. We do recognize the need for company branding. We think these 2 small signs down here at the bottom are probably not going to actually wind up counting into their total, because I don't think they're going to be visible at all. They're more over a window. But some of the things we looked at is this heart that was shown on the building is 12.5 by 16 feet just for the heart. So staff saw a way that could be reduced in size, They do show a smaller one here that's 9 by 11.5. And then we did consider this signage as well, which is 11.5, and then 5 by 6 for the heart. So staff did recommend that we decrease the amount of convenience store signage to a maximum of 275 square feet on that building. Then the building in the rear is the service center building, and you can see it's got the Speedco signage here with the Loves. And then it has the signage here on the right elevation with the heart on each side. So that total signage is 256.52 square feet. Staff did not make any recommended changes to that. We felt that was okay. It's also at the rear of the property, so we don't think that it's going to be very visible at all except for the tractor trailers going through the site. This is a summary of what the applicant requested, and you can see that in this line item here. It's the fourth column, basically. And then what staff recommended here, and then what the Planning Commission recommended. Overall, staff recommended 2136 square feet. The Planning Commission recommended 2215. The main changes in that were the monument sign. Staff had recommended 90 square feet. The signage for the Loves is 137 square feet for the monument sign. However, you have to consider that's just the signage that we count. We don't count the huge monument structure that's 23 by 12 feet. So that's not total square footage. And then they did recommend the full amount of directional signage requested by the applicant at 32 square feet. So they did recommend approval of the requested special use permit to increase the height and square footage of the signage with the following conditions, and I will go over these. The site will be developed in general conformance with the site plan prepared by Effective Images dated 1/4/2023. The maximum height of the proposed high-rise sign shall not exceed 190 feet, and the maximum square footage of the total signage on the high-rise sign shall not exceed 1168 square feet. The proposed freestanding entrance sign shall be a monument sign constructed in general conformance with the drawing submitted by Effective Images dated 1/18/2023. The sign shall not exceed 12 feet in overall height and 137 square feet in area, and it shall not be located in an area that would impede sight distance. The maximum height of the proposed freestanding way station sign shall not exceed, that should be 215 feet, and the maximum 21.5 feet, and the maximum square footage 115 square feet. The maximum square footage of the total signage for the gasoline and fuel canopy sign shall not exceed 188, and the maximum square footage of the total signage of the convenience store building shall not exceed 275. The maximum square footage of total signage on the tire shop shall not exceed 260. The maximum height of the Loves branded directional sign shall not exceed 8 feet, and the maximum square footage of each sign shall not exceed 32 square feet. The maximum height of the Arby's branded directional sign shall not exceed 4 feet, and a maximum square footage shall not exceed 4 square feet. And then the applicant shall provide documentation of FAA review and approval of the proposed high-rise sign. So the Planning Commission recommended approval with those conditions on a 7-to-1 vote, with one person absent. Since that time, staff has been able to visit Love's locations, as we told you. We did stop at the Rockingham County Love's location. It does have, these signs are more in line with the size that they've proposed. So this sign was, we think, we didn't take a measuring tape to it, so I'm not positive. But based on us standing next to it and kind of gauging it, we think this is a 32 square foot and 8-foot sign. This freestanding sign is different from either of the ones submitted to us. I'm estimating this sign to be probably 20 to 25 feet tall. And then this, of course, was the branding on the store. These were much smaller than what was proposed in their package to us. This is the dog park. This is the service center, which is smaller than the service center that they're proposing on our site. But you can see the signage that they've located there. And then this was the scale sign. Then in New Kent, this is more like the freestanding sign that was proposed to us initially. We do think that one is about 25 feet in height, so we think that's probably the exact sign that they showed us. This is their canopy signage, and you can see the scales off to the side. These directional signs, however, are much smaller. We are thinking they're more like the 16 square feet that we were talking about. And based on the height of this chain link fence, we're thinking they're no more than 6 feet tall. So that was for the autos, and then the trucks are autos. And it should be noted, this one was located a fairly good distance from where it needed to be to guide the traffic as well. And then this was the building signage. This store, I believe, is smaller than what is proposed at this site. Adjoining property owners were notified. As we stated, we have received several inquiries regarding the total request, and we did have those 2 speakers at the public hearing. At this time, I will take any questions you have for staff, and as stated, the applicants are here to discuss it with you as well if you have any questions for them.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. We'll start off with Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Yeah, these signs, I don't know if you can answer this, Bree. We may need Mr. Sheffield and company to come on up. But my question is, why would you go through the expense of putting up a 190-foot sign when you can't see it? It's about southbound, it's maybe 50% effective. Northbound, it's about 10% effective, and it seems like it's an awful waste of money. And my question is, have you ever had this type of topography in an area that one of these signs were used? If you want to come on up,
I think that's going to be an applicant question.
Yeah.
Go with your questions. We have done signs that have topography that are similar. This is a little worse than average. And in this particular case, if I could get billboards to compensate for it, I would. Because you're probably looking at about a $500,000 sign here. So I would agree with your comments that it's kind of hard to justify when it costs that much money, but we have to have something to let people know that we're there. And unfortunately, the blue boards, although they help, they certainly are not the end-all be-all for directions. I can tell you as a person who drives 100,000 miles a year plus, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten off on a blue board. Cracker Barrel's right down here. No, it's 8 miles down here. Please hope that they have those extra directionals once you get off. So it becomes pretty challenging, but some signage and the fact that it's at night certainly will amplify the usability of the sign.
Well, if you went to the edge of that property with the sign, I think, Bree, you showed it from, was it Rockingham?
Yes.
That was a fairly large sign, and anybody getting off at the exit would definitely be able to see it, I would think. I would think that would be just a better location to put it, but...
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure when you're referencing Rockingham, exactly where you're talking about.
Okay. I can't give you the mile marker. It's way up there.
Is it on...
Right before 64.
Right before 64.
Interstate 81 before you go
Okay,
on 64.
yeah, and I think I refer to that as Greenville or Staunton.
Okay, yeah, that's it. That's it, Greenville.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, the sign was obviously a lot more visible there because I did that side as well. Much more open, not near the topography. Now, we had a lot more rock to deal with there, but that's neither here nor there.
So is there an option, if that sign was not to be approved, for you all to put something different?
Unfortunately not. I not even get the visibility that we need. It's certainly not what is most desirable, but we have to have some sort of visibility. And a lot of it really boils down to the safety aspect because, you know, if a truck is, more importantly, when you're brand new, then, you know, after we've been there for 10 years. But, you know, you want to make sure a truck has plenty of time to maneuver and get over into the right-hand lane to actually get off if they're heading northbound. And kind of the same thing if you're headed southbound. You want them to have sufficient time. And what we use as a general rule from the sign legibility standards that we look at is that you generally want 2 to 3/10 mile view in order to get the trucks off. So, you know, if they see it a half mile out or even further, they know one's coming up.
What time of year did you take those pictures?
It was taken, you remember the date on that survey? I want to say they were done in October, but I don't want to swear to that. I can find you the date if you're desirous to have
Well,
it.
the way it looked to me like there was a lot of leaves off the trees, so I think what you're going to wind up with for $500,000 is even less than what you think you're going to get. And I don't think VDOT's going to cut down trees for you so that it would be more visible. And northbound, the 2 to 3 tenths out, like you said, that's what you want them to see. It's not visible at all. And the southbound, you could see it from a distance, then it disappeared, and then when you got close, you could see it again. But I think you could accomplish the same thing with a much shorter sign, probably closer in.
I think you're probably right that you could at the very short, basically at the off-ramp. I don't think you're going to get any particular good read on 81 itself if you go up there. We actually tried the sign survey at a few different locations, including further up our property towards Norfolk, because it would be a shorter sign. And when you get up to that height, you're talking $2,500 to $3,000 a foot, so every foot's important.
Right.
But the visibility was not good at all, moving up to the north.
Okay. As far as all the other recommendations that the Planning Commission made, I think they'll work. But it's that tall sign that just I don't know. I'm sure they all would have some more questions for you too. So thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor King.
I'm just sitting here looking at these signs and all this. Did we have anything in our ordinance that they did like? Size-wise or anything?
We spent a lot of time talking to their sign people, and it is a difficult site, and there is a lot. So to try to get everything on the site that's needed, I mean, there's no way they could stay within the 180 square feet that we would allow. The smaller directional signage for RVs are exactly what we call for. There's the setbacks. They have not asked for any setback exemptions, so they're meeting all the setback requirements for the ordinance. Other than that, most everything else, when you combine it all together, exceeds the square footage and or the height.
Thing is, we have that other station across the street from it. They got a, 25-foot sign?
It's 15 foot
15?
is what we're guessing. 15 at the very most 20, but we're thinking 15.
And they're wanting us to raise theirs how many?
25 is what they were requesting for their freestanding sign, and then the high-rise sign of 190.
Yeah, I'm just going to be upfront and honest with you. I think that 190 is just too tall. We got an ordinance for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I've got a couple of questions that probably both of you might have input on. If passed, if approved, the 190-foot sign, can utilities be co-located on that sign, like cell service, cell tower type utilities?
We would consider it a co-location, so it would just be a permit requirement for us. I'm not sure what their requirements are.
As far as the cell tower capability,
Co-locations.
we don't have any that currently exist. I have talked to cell tower companies in the past that thought it was a good idea, but no one ever followed through with it. So I'm not anticipating any cell tower antennas or anything being on the sign itself.
But your company doesn't have a policy against it?
No
Okay.
policy against it, but certainly if we thought that was a probability, we would want to make sure we take that into account regarding the engineering, because as you've indicated, when you get up to a 190-foot tall sign, that's a big sign, a lot of steel, and you want to make sure that it's built right, because the last thing you want to do is deal with it going down.
And then I appreciate that answer. And then I've got a question just about the entry sign. Was the reason the monument sign was the planning conditions recommendation just purely aesthetic, or was there any other reason given?
I think a lot of it was aesthetic, because it is more visually pleasing. My concern is
Sight distance.
Is the large, well, that, and, I mean, when you look at 11 and a half of those, you're basically looking at a wall.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of my concern. And at that point, you know, we actually talked about it as staff, and we said we would have actually preferred the first freestanding sign that they submitted, because I feel like you're not just looking at a wall. But definitely, we love the aesthetics of it and the appearance, and it fits in well with what we have wanted for our village. It's just very large.
Okay. I had another question, and it has completely left. Hopefully it comes back, and I'll ask again. Thank you both very much.
Supervisor Bone.
The fencing, will the fencing be able to be backed into?
No, it should not be. When we design the locations, the trailers have an overhang of 12 as much as 15 feet, and I'm waiting on an answer if I'm incorrect on that. That's how we design them, so that when the trailer backs up, they don't hit the fence. So it will be offset far enough back where it will not be a problem with that.
Okay. What kind of fencing is available that can minimize being cut, broken? You know, maybe a trucker wants to go hiking up the mountain. I don't know.
Seemed like it'd be a lot of effort, but
I know.
I'm not gonna say it won't happen. I'm unaware of anything that would actually work, and what we were asked from the planning commission is to go with an opaque type fence, which I'm interpreting to be more like a Trex type of fence, because it was specifically called out, no chain link fence back there. Now, there may be chain link fence on other parts, but I may be speaking on that. But the fact is, we're happy to go with whatever type of fence that the board would prefer.
I'm just curious, how high is a trucker's cab? How high does the trucker sit off the road?
12 feet.
Okay. Is there a limitation for the sign to only be 190 feet? Could we give them 10 or 20 more feet?
If you wanted to increase the size of the high-rise sign, I believe we would have to re-advertise that, because we advertised it as 190 feet. So if you wanted to increase it, it would have to go back through advertising, but you can decrease it.
Is there any
without-
value to making the sign taller?
I don't normally say this, but I don't necessarily think there is. Our sign company's usually pretty good about recommending larger signs if they can, if it's helpful. And in this particular case, I don't think there was a benefit to that being taller, because you still have the same issues that you had with the sign that you saw in the presentation. You still have the mountains and trees and other obstacles that are just going to get in your way. I know for sure we can't move it to the north, because I asked that question, because logically you would think you're at a higher elevation up there, up there. So you would think that your sign could be a little bit shorter, or you get better visibility, and that's not how it worked out.
And Ms. Hopkins, can we ask that the monument sign be actually smaller square feet? Because really, once you get on the road, on the exit, you see the big sign. You know which way to turn, because the directional sign's going to, there's nothing else beyond it. So, you don't need a big sign.
Correct. Yes, you can change the condition to change the square footage and the overall size of the sign.
And what would be the minimum size sign that you guys would accept?
Honestly, I thought I tried to ask for the minimum with that. And actually, to I think answer your question from before, my recollection of the meetings is the first kind of informational or discussion meeting that we had, there was a lot of reservation about that normal street sign, and that's what we refer to it as, the 25-foot one. And that's when I had the sign company go back and prepare a monument sign in thoughts that it was the aesthetics that was more of the issue, more so than the square footage. But we can certainly shrink it down if we have to. It's not going to be as effective. From a
It doesn't
readability
really
standpoint.
have to be effective because everybody knows where to go. Once
That's true. They may not know for sure what the offerings are, though. Because that read, even when you get to the off-ramp, is still going to be pretty short. I mean, it's going to be a very tall sign, but
But everybody knows that a Love's has a fast food joint. So it'll,
Sure.
I'm assuming so,
Well, I mean, ultimately, if it's your desire to ask us to shrink it down, we can do that. Would
Mhm.
prefer to get some limitations on what you would like to see, and then we'll move in that direction.
Let me make sure. Ms. Hopkins, what can we do? Could we put one of those Mount Tabor signs that says, "Do not go past here," if you're a trucker, over by the Exxon?
We would probably have to ask VDOT, but we could ask VDOT if we could put something like that.
Because there is some kind of sign over there, but obviously the signs on Mount Tabor are so much, they're good,
Right.
I think,
Yes, I will reach out to David Clark and get an answer on that for you.
And not to interrupt the conversation, but if it's your desire to have a sign put up, if VDOT agrees to let that happen, we're happy to put that sign up because we want trucks to turn into us. We don't want them to be errant and go the wrong way and get in a situation where they get stuck where they shouldn't be.
My earlier question of if there's flooding, truckers they're not going to know not to come to your place. Is there any way that you can notify them to please don't come expecting to park here because there is no parking?
There is no effective way that I'm aware of. We have had instances where because of road work and other things, we can notify our fleet customers through our direct bill group that, they should try to avoid this for whatever the case may be. But in an instance of like a flood with a heavy rain or something, I don't know how you would have enough notification to get the word out.
Okay. And how many charging stations are you going to have?
It has not been determined yet. What we are planning on doing here is to pre-plumb it for the EVs, not knowing for sure what type of EV or system is going to kind of be the norm. But we are definitely doing that, not only this location, but all of our new builds.
Just make sure that you don't just have Tesla, you have the other. Do you care about deer getting in?
To the best of my knowledge, and I've been with the company almost 26 years now, I have never seen that as a problem or heard of it as a problem. I actually have never seen it as a problem either, but I'm unaware of that being an issue.
We have deer that go into grocery stores, so it might be a little bit different. Do you put up signs for the RVs not to stay more than 3 days or something like that?
We do not. As I've indicated I know you weren't at those meetings, but the RV is fairly new business for us. And what we're finding right now is the average stay is 1 to 2 nights. But we thought we needed to put a limit on there because what we didn't want to have is a trailer park scenario where people are coming in and basically, that become their residence. And that's not desirous for anyone.
Is there a way to block the brightness of the 190 sign for the church?
I don't think so in the way that you were described or was being described before, but I can tell you that those signs have dials on them as far as the ability to limit the brightness on it, the lumens on it, because I certainly have had to deal with that in other approval processes where you limit it down.
So it would be bright. Maybe the church would tell you when they're going to have activities and you could lower the lumens, or what are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is more in an effort to meet the code requirements. When we had the sign actually built and before the installation, they adjusted the brightness to accommodate the correct, to meet the standard.
And what's the lowest number of lumens that you can have a sign to be effective?
I'm sorry, I do not recall what that was. It was pretty limited. It was a little bit different situation too, because it was in Colorado, and it was a pretty flat area of Colorado, not the mountain area. But we can restrict that down, and I really don't have any fear that we won't be able to meet the requirement regarding the lumens and the photometric plan that is going to be presented.
Just give me one last second here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
Talking about that monument sign, do you know the approximate distance between that sign and the southbound exit ramp entrance onto North Fork? Like how far is it?
My best guess would be 300 or 400 feet, because it's kind of in the mid portion of the lineal frontage.
Okay, because I've been through there several times, but it's been a while. I was thinking it would be closer than that, but
Yeah,
anyway.
honestly, and I'm sorry, but I actually looked at it more from a standpoint of making sure that there was no blockage with us only having one entry point.
Right.
I didn't want to have a line of sight issue or any other problems. And so I didn't pay as much attention to the distance from the off-ramp as I did to our actually access point.
Okay, that's all I have.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Okay, a lot of my questions have been asked. I just have a couple more. On this 30 days of parking RVs, it sounds like you're saying that normally they stay 1 to 2 days. I mean, I don't know why it would be 30 days. Are you all amenable to making that less, or do you want it to be 30 days? I'm not clear on that.
Well, I think the number of days in question is really 30. If 3 came up, that's fine. I mean, it would be contrary to what we have set up at the other locations, but we certainly will adhere to whatever code that whatever you're happy with.
Okay. And then I wanted to get back to the second thing about trash, because I go to Love's a lot, when I'm traveling. Could you sort of talk about how you all manage trash at a site? Because that seems to be a big concern.
Yeah, it's kind of a twofold process, because there are instances where we have illegal dumping from tires and other things, and that usually is handled on an as-need basis. The rest of the trash, of course, we set trash receptacles out mainly through the truck area. We, of course, have them around the building and stuff as well, in hopes that they'll use that to keep it, neat and tidy. Our operations are designed to go through, in the summer months, it's more than once a shift, and shift being an 8-hour time period, but at shift change, everything is supposed to be brought back up to a kind of a start basis. So somebody will come out and empty all the trash cans and, anything else that needs to be done outside of the perimeter of the property.
Okay. And then, let's see, what was the last thing? Oh, the last thing was something that the gentleman from the church brought up about having some kind of buffer. And then I heard that there was a concern about noise, affecting the church. Did you all talk about buffers, or how would that work?
And actually, we were able to connect right before the last meeting and then meet in person at the last meeting that we were at. And he asked us to consider putting in some sort of evergreen tree. And then at tonight's meeting, he mentioned the
Yeah, the one that grows really, really
Leland
fast.
cypress, yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm not an arborist. I'm
Yeah,
not real good
that's
at
okay.
landscaping. You could ask my wife. But, we're certainly happy to do that. And Sarah actually wrote that name down. But Kim Cooper was the lady who was here last time representing CESO, and she's already kind of implemented additional tree landscaping in there to help with the buffer, particularly in the months where the trees are gone off of the hardwoods.
Okay, so that's something that you all are okay with, is to put in a
Yes,
good
ma'am.
buffer.
It certainly doesn't take a board to tell us to be nice to a neighbor who we're going to be around for a long time.
Okay.
So if we can assist in any, way within reason, we will do that.
And Ms. Biggs, what we can do is have them submit that updated plan to us that shows that additional evergreen landscaping, and then we can revise that condition to reference the new date on the plan. We can also add a condition that those, whatever they are, Leland
They
cypress
do,
or
yeah, they grow
evergreens,
really fast.
will be installed, and we'll note where they need to be installed and how many and that type of thing. So we can draft a condition of that before your next meeting. We can even send it out to you guys to review ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Just a few questions. First of all, Supervisor Fidzikowski addressed one of the questions about there's not a whole lot of sight from that 190-foot sign. So he kind of answered was not very beneficial, but I understand that you do need something, especially if it's illuminated at night. Obviously, it will be more visible for that. So that's not really just a statement. On the sight distance for the monument, is there any concern with line of sight distance from passenger vehicles, since it is going to be, I mean, obviously trucks are sitting up higher and that wouldn't be as great a concern, but something that big for passenger vehicles?
Right. VDOT would have to review the sign location, so we send sign permits that are close to the right-of-way for them to review, just to ensure that sight distance is not impeded. They would look at it both from passenger and from truck traffic.
And for Mr. Sheffield, and this hasn't been brought up and not really on this condition, but will that travel center have security and security camera? What types of securities?
We will have security cameras that, of course, in all interior, and then it pans out towards both the gas and diesel areas. We generally do not have security as far as armed security or, general higher security unless it is warranted. What we have found is generally the warrant is based more in urban areas, not necessarily the rural areas. But, if anything happens, we would be all over wanting to get security out there because, the safety of our employees and our guests is first.
Okay. All right, very good. Are there any follow-up questions? Supervisor Fidzikowski.
There was some talk at the Planning Commission, I think, in relating to the height of the fence as it borders the church property. Have you discussed that with them about making it a little bit taller?
Yes, sir. And we agreed to do an 8-foot fence there. He certainly felt that 6 foot would not be sufficient. And I really can't speak to the sufficiency of it, but if it's helpful to go 8 feet instead of 6, that's fine.
Well, I think your plan with these Leland cypress trees, I think probably would take care of most of that. It would fill in and block the light, because even at 8 feet, when the trucks are all parked in there, their lights will be shining, and that'll be not that an amber light or a red light is going to be seen that as far as a headlight, but I think that would really help out a lot. And I really like your what you said about the VDOT sign, because it was a couple years ago, I don't know if you all remember, but there was an issue that was brought up by several citizens about trucks going down Route 603, and I know you're not familiar with this area, but from exit 128 all the way to Blacksburg. Well, they did a survey on that, and they found out, well, that whatever the citizens saw must have been an anomaly or whatever, that it wasn't a regular thing that was happening. But the fact that the tractor trailers are getting past Lancers and getting down that road, which is just a secondary, curvy, hilly road with no place to turn around. So I could see if one got that far, they may have to keep going. But the fact that you're willing to work with VDOT on a bigger sign, because the sign that they have is not large enough, and it has one battery-operated light on it, but it definitely could use probably something else to catch the attention, to make sure that drivers definitely don't go any further than Lancers, and that would be their last opportunity to turn around. So it would be nice if all the GPS systems would warn them about that, but apparently it doesn't work, or maybe they don't have it turned on, or maybe they're like me, they're not technology equipped. But I like what I'm hearing about the trees and the fence height too. I I think it's important, so thank you.
Any other follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Sheffield.
Thank you for your questions.
Chair. So we will open up this public hearing for the special use permit for the comprehensive sign plan, Love's Truck Stop. I have Danny Reed.
Thank you. I would question the sign being 190 feet. Most truck stops you have along A1 do not have a sign that tall. My first question is it's kind of a catch-all for a cell tower to be there later on. But these other truck stops, I mean, if you're a Love truck stop, I mean, you're there a week or two, everybody's going to know you're there, okay? It's on your GPS and everything else, and I just question that huge sign. I mean, could they drop it down to 40 or 50 feet or 60 feet or 70 feet? But that's going to be kind of towering over all of our properties there, and anything you can do to help us, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't have anyone else sign up. Would anybody like to come forward on this? Yes, sir. Come forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 4 minutes to address the board.
My name is David Hagan. I think everybody here knows I'm for building anything. I'm move forward. And I would like to have 4 50-foot signs, not 190. But I do have a 170-foot pole and a flagpole at the dealerships. But I guess Steve will talk about the forgotten side of the county, Elliston, that area. Just a consideration. I'm not for or against this. I just want you to consider this as you're looking forward. There's only one way. If the county is going to grow in that area, we just finished a development there, 58 units, I think, in Midway Estates. We built and sold that community in 24 months. Because we had sewer there and water. And there's one way to get to Christiansburg from there, really. And you either go 460 or you go the Roanoke exit and you're 3 minutes to the interstate and then you're 12 minutes to Christiansburg. I just want you to consider the future of what that's going to be in that area. And there's residential areas that you can grow. Again, guys, you know that I don't want to stop any progress that we're having, but it is kind of the forgotten side of the county, population-wise. But if we had our sewer, we had more water, it would develop so fast. Just consider that's the only way to get there is through that short little. And if you'll remember how we ended up getting the improvements to that exit, or it would still be this tiny little windy road that Love or no one would want to go to probably. But just as a consideration to think about the future of what, to develop that side of the county. The Roanoke exit is kind of it. You get to Dixie Caverns, but still, the Roanoke exit is it to get to Christiansburg. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward?
We like being the forgotten part of Montgomery County, frankly. I just wanted to talk about the signs a little bit. And the, what was the phrase? Night sky friendly, something like that. I live probably 4 miles by the road and maybe 1.5 miles to 2 miles by line of sight from the current truck stop. There's a little mountain kind of in between me and that. And the glow that the Lancer produces is pretty substantial. And when I hear, I think I heard like 2,300 square feet of just signage, not even including the parking spaces or anything like that and all the reflected light. That's gonna glow like a city, on the other side of that mountain. So it's just another reason why I would oppose this. Not to mention all the other things like if you're in a floodplain, how does that affect buried fuel tanks and stuff like that, and all the disastrous things that could happen from something like this. So again, please oppose it. Thank you.
Sir, you come forward, name and address, and you'll have 4 minutes.
I'm John Connor, and I'm a member of the church. But one thing I'd like to point out, if the cell tower, a pro for voting for the tower, not the cell tower, but the big sign, there's 2 cell towers already on the mountain directly behind it. So there probably is no benefit to considering that for a sign. But if we could, anything with the sign, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close that public hearing. Just for the citizens to know, there will be no action on the Love's Travel Center tonight. So there will no action will be taken for the Love's Travel Center tonight. Right now, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will come back, and public address will be up next. from either. Ready, ready. Okay, we're ready to begin. Next up, public address. This is the citizens' time to present comments and issues deserving the attention of the board. We have a public address sign-up sheet, and then after that name is called, any citizen that would like to come forward will state their name and address, and they will have 4 minutes to address the board. All comments must be directed to the chair or other supervisors by the speaker's lectern at the front of the room. Please begin by stating your name and address. Debate between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Speakers may leave any written statements or comments to the supervisors with the board clerk. Speakers will be judged out of order should the speaker engage in any personal attacks, profanity, or abusive language or debate with the audience and not address the supervisors. First name on the list is William Price.
Again, William Price, live at 1405 Merrimack Road. Again, I thank you for your patience this evening. And I'm not going to say that we saved the best to last. Actually, by some misunderstanding, I'm here a week or two early to talk about taxes, and I know you're just thrilled with that. And Mr. Meadows, I looked at that budget a little bit, and it's awesome. It's just awesome. I have to do a little bit of budgeting myself, and I don't envy you the task, but I brought something with me this evening. I want to leave it with you. It's a little bit of a homework assignment. And I brought both pages. I know you've got so much to read. But so I circled just 2 paragraphs that primarily I'd like you to read. Now, this report was prepared by the National Association of Home Builders in 2019. In the year 2019, the number for the cost of building a dwelling this is for governmental regulations. And I'd just like you to think about this. If we take a $400,000 home, just draw a little simple circle, and cut out a piece of the pie, 1/4. In 2019, 24.3% of the cost of a single-family home was governmental regulations. Being familiar with the process of appraising and understanding the need of assessment and trying to gain some equal structure for the taxpayers to support our government, I know it's an awesome task. I appraised for 20 or 25 years. I understand the concepts, and of course I don't do it now. But anyway, I brought this with me, and I'm going to leave it, if I may, with the clerk to pass around. And if you could, I just urge you at least to look at the front page and look at some of this information as provided in 2019. As we think about the needs of our county and housing and balancing this thing equitably, I need not tell you there's a lot of challenges. And I'm certainly not here to pretend that I've got all the answers. I would say, and I don't doubt that you're already doing this, far beyond anything I'm aware of. But I suspect that some study as far as the effort toward gaining efficiency and productivity, not only in our governmental regulations, but as I look at that budget, and these different agencies are coming to you for money, just like tonight, I came in again and suggested Haywood, and you want to satisfy everybody. Impossibility. So where do we really draw the line? And at the end of the day, it seems to me we've got to find ways to start drawing that line. Or just like we saw this week, two of the biggest banks in this nation tanked.
Mr. Price, thank you.
Thank you. I'll just leave this over here. Okay.
Anyone else would like to come forward to address the board? You'd have 4 minutes to do so.
Good evening, Bob Beard. I live at 1200 Flint Drive. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to talk about the last school meeting. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch it yet, but I want to, when you watch it, count how many times they said that Dr. Bregan was brought in to specifically secure a teachers' union. Please watch and count. Who said the school attorney only gets in the way? Who said MCPS doesn't need an attorney to protect the school system in agreement with the teachers' union? Again, remember, she is a union head. Please ask what a real seat at the table means. They said it over and over again. That's all MCA wants to do for teachers, get them a real seat at the table. I'm not sure what they don't have already. What happens to the parents' seat at the table? MCPS doesn't even enforce its own policy. They have a policy 5-3.4 on what allows teachers to actively do on campus during hours and after hours. And they don't follow that policy. That teacher should not be a teacher any longer. We also hear planning time is an issue. Is this exclusive to MCPS teachers? Who demands all the reporting, the state or MCPS? I believe it's going to be confined to the state, so this is not exclusive to MCPS. Did you watch the mom reading of the library book? I think you would classify that as pornographic. Please watch that and listen. And so next, talk about money. Okay, how does this, has any of the board supervisors asked the school board on ways to lower their costs or their budget? Has student population increased? Have grades gotten better? Did they ask for money to specifically address the loss of learning that we experience? Where does MCPS teacher pay rank against other local school systems? I think you'll find that they're second. They were seventh, but the previous administration put policy and practice in place to be competitive for new teachers. So now they are second in the for new teacher hires. So again, it's not a money issue. They're trying to be competitive. How many years in a row have teachers gotten a raise, received a raise? 8 consecutive years, the teachers have received a school pay raise. And how many years in a row have the teachers' SOL scores been falling? Please look that up, okay? What is the current cost per student for a public education at MCPS? This year is $13,500. The proposed cost is over $14,000 per student. Why is the private school a fraction of the cost of public school education? Is 50% of our high school at 70% capacity? The answer is yes. I did some more research. The same high school cost $35 million for the renovation, included 27 new classrooms. 27 new classrooms. How many classrooms is it CHS getting? And why is it 3 times more than the Salem renovation? And my last question is, when is your joint session? Please ask some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to come forward to address the board? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public address. Addendum.
No addendum this evening, Madam Chair.
All right. Then can I have a motion to move into work session to discuss the budget?
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Board members, this evening we have this work session on the agenda just to see if there's any questions or any follow-ups that you would like to discuss. I know that Deputy Administrator Hill sent out an email believe it was last night, with responses to some of the information regarding school resource officers. And be glad to have that discussion. Budget Director Magruder's here as well if there's additional questions, and we're here to listen and help.
Okay, we'll open up the discussions. I think, where am I? Oh, Supervisor Bone.
I'd like to propose that we do what the sheriff and all the SRO officers and infrastructure that we would need, and the clerk in our budget, which is different than what was in our budget.
So 6 deputies, 1 supervisor, and 1 administrative assistant.
That's right.
For the
And
total.
Christiansburg.
Yep, and the equipment and the cars and everything.
And we did, in the information that we sent out, we showed that, Angie, I'll let you talk the numbers, and you and Mark can.
We did show that the additional cost for those positions is about $344,000. The cost for 7 vehicles is $385,000. So if you wanted to fund that with one-time money, you could do that. If you didn't want to add that to the budget this year, and then we could cycle that into the replacement schedule in the future.
So we can use the one-time money for the vehicles and equipment, even uniforms for that matter, right? And stuff?
We could, it's not a significant amount to, for the uniforms, but you could do
The
that.
300,000 plus for
Yes.
the people.
Right.
We have a little bit of wiggle room to absorb that.
It's 385 for the vehicles and 343 for the people.
Does the sheriff want to confirm that that's what you would need to do? Need to have?
Can I add an addendum to your question and confirm that that's what we need for Christiansburg? This does not
include Blacksburg.
Include Blacksburg in any way.
Or the rest of the county?
Or the rest of the county, yes.
Good evening. One point of clarification, the vehicles aren't out there. So I would ask, we just talked to our distributor the other day. I would ask that money, please hold it somewhere so we can get to it when we can get the vehicles. We've been waiting on 3 for a year, and one of them's still sitting at the plant in Michigan. The other 2 are in Virginia Beach, and we can't get them here yet for whatever reason.
But otherwise, the numbers make sense, and that would give you what you need.
I'm sure Angie's numbers are on point there.
If we take the vehicles out of the 343, it takes $110,000 out, so it would be 230 in that neighborhood for the, just for the positions.
Okay.
3 vehicles, I'm sorry, for 3 vehicles.
There were only 2 vehicles because the administrative person was not getting a vehicle, is that correct?
Right.
For a total of 7.
That's right. Total of 7 vehicles.
Yeah,
That's right.
okay, there we go.
But of the increase of that 343, there are 2 vehicles in that.
Okay.
Mr. Meadows, I didn't include the one for down here. I don't know if you want to include it.
No,
in.
that's
Okay.
separate. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Yeah, Sheriff, you said at the last meeting that if we granted all those positions, those 7 positions, which I am in favor of, that you would not be able to fill them. Would it be wiser for you to make a guess at how many you can fill this next year and maybe fill in the rest the following year?
I am in consult right now with 2 that we were unaware of before I came before you all last week. I am hopeful that if you go forward with it and we drive on in that process, that I'm hopeful for by the summer. And then we'll just keep working.
Okay,
It's really impossible to predict, but we have some good tentacles out there, and
So you would have 4 deputies by July?
I'm very hopeful.
All right.
That's a wish. So, but I will do my best, and
Well, I was going to make another suggestion about the vehicles, but since you can't get them anyways, I guess it's a moot point, so
well, production is still not where it used to be.
I'll hold off on that.
And Ms. Hill, on the recommendation, the vehicles can be one-time monies,
Yes, ma'am.
and that way that would help us out, okay,
Yes.
on the budget.
Whenever they were available, you could fund those with one-time money.
And would we do that for any other vehicle requests from the county? I know we're looking at a possible,
The sheriff did mention this community resource officer position here was going to require an addition of a vehicle too, and it would follow that same rule whenever we could be able to acquire one.
and the same with Parks and Rec. I think there was a
Yes.
request for a vehicle there.
Yeah, some of the work vehicles, the utility vehicles, they're scarce too, but the real challenge has been the law enforcement vehicles.
But we could fund all of the vehicle requests, the additional vehicle requests with one-time money.
Will you have enough vehicles for the 4 officers or up to the 7 people that need vehicles when they start their work?
I'm very hopeful we will. I'm hopeful that we'll get the other 3 in that were part of our budget last year that we're still waiting on. And like I say, 2 of them are, I said Virginia Beach, but they're actually in Richmond. And 1 is in Michigan. It's ready to go. It's just not here for whatever reason. So I'm hopeful we could make that happen.
Any other supervisors have questions or comments for Sheriff Parton?
I was going to ask one thing.
Vice Chair Biggs?
Yes, Sheriff Parton, on the training for the SROs, like, is there a cost to that? Or how does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
I do not have that dollar figure for you.
Okay, and then like, is the training offered at different times during the year? It's not like you have to go at this certain time and be trained. Like if you were to get officers, like you started out with a group, but then you were adding some on, would they be able to get the training?
Negative. The training is very specific and only comes around every so often.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that worked.
It's not very easy to get a hold of. You have to attend when it's here, and you might have to travel to get it.
Yeah, I figured that. All right, thanks.
Are there any officers in our community that have received the training that are not school resource officers or won't be after June 30th?
I can't speak for Blacksburg or Christiansburg, but all of our SROs obviously have received the training and are fulfilling that mission. Supervisor DeMassa, I do not believe we have any elsewhere who have had the training.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's... I totally appreciate the challenges associated with recruiting new officers to serve in this capacity because it is a very specialized capacity. So I'm just kind of thinking, are there, through the training academies, is there possibly some resources available there that could put you in touch with, I'm just kind of brainstorming, how do we get them? If they're approved, obviously this board and you really want to have them in the schools. How do we get them? Where do they come from?
The director at our academy will be on the lookout for us.
Great.
But to be honest with you, if you're in the police academy and you're a new officer,
You're already with
you're not there to be an SRO, at least not for a few years.
Gotcha. Thank you. I know that this is it's a certain amount of stress for you to think about how we're going to recruit for these positions. But I know it also is very rewarding because you've long said how much you want to expand this program. So thank you for the work that you're having to do to get us there.
It's important to us.
Yeah.
Always has been.
Yeah.
Supervisor Shepherd, did you have a? Supervisor Fidzikowski?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it a requirement that they be SRO certified?
There is. There is a 1 week school that I know they have to have. And, I'm not sure, but I think that might be like in service.
I remember when I took it, it was a week long,
Mhm.
and it didn't come around very often.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
I
I was just
understand.
wondering if that was possible to get an officer that had, you know, some seniority, that could take other possibly, possible training in like juvenile crime or, issues like that, that might work temporarily till they can be trained. And hopefully they do the training in the summertime.
And, you know, we could always be fortunate and they might be out there and come to us. We never know. Won't know until we try.
Sheriff Parton, we do appreciate your commitment and willingness, because this will be a new adventure to take on, basically doubling your resource officers that you have now. But I feel that that is a great commitment and opportunity, and we do know this board understands that there are going to be challenges. But I feel that we're going to do it. We're going to do it right and make sure we keep our citizens and our kids safe. So thank you for your commitment.
Well, you know, we appreciate you all too. Thank you.
We'll go around the board and see if other supervisors have questions, comments that we could. All right, nothing from Mr. Shepherd here. Supervisor Fidzikowski?
Yeah, I was looking at the survey that the schools did on the on security, and I think SROs came in number 3 or 2. It was pretty high up there. And so I'm thinking that if this is, if we end up putting all these SROs out there, that maybe we should be looking at taking some of the school money and applying it towards those officers. And I'll just throw that out there, and y'all can have fun with it.
Vice Chair Biggs?
Well, I'll speak to that. Right now, we still don't have any direction from the General Assembly about monies that are going to come to schools. And that includes the money that was in question, the 1.3 million. We also don't have any extra money as far as raises if they go above 5%. So at this time, I don't see how that would happen unless something that was very vital was cut. And that's my comment on that.
And I'll just add, I appreciate what you're saying, Supervisor Fidzikowski. I would not be in favor of taking the SRO money out of the school money. However, it would be interesting to look down the road in partnership with the schools, in partnership with the sheriff's office. I wouldn't oppose looking at how to incorporate that program into the school's budget as an addition to their budget if that was necessary. But I wouldn't want to take money out of their budget to offset the cost to the county for the SROs at this time.
If I could just respond to that. I think everybody was copied on all the carryover money that they average. That's where I'm thinking that could be a source of some funds to cover the SROs. I know other school divisions do it differently. We haven't looked at it, and I'm just suggesting that maybe it's time we started looking at it. And I like your idea of maybe putting something in the budget for that reason. So, thank you.
Supervisor Bone?
Right now, who's paying for it? Who's paying for the SROs right now? Us? Well, taxpayers, of course, but yeah.
We cover the ones in the unincorporated areas of the county, and the town of Christiansburg covers the ones in the
Right.
MCPS in Christiansburg. And Blacksburg covers the program they have in the town of Blacksburg. Thank you.
So Supervisor Fidjakowski, are you saying that all SROs would, or just the ones that are in Christiansburg? What are you actually talking about?
I haven't really proposed any kind of formula. I'm just saying, share the cost. I don't have a formula.
Share the cost? So
Yeah,
that we're not.
take a big number, split it in half, and you do half and I'll do half. How's that?
Something like that, whatever.
All right, that's
whatever
a good
that is.
start.
Let's look at it, is what you're saying. Yes, thank you.
Does anybody else have Supervisor King?
I've always said SOR officers should be in the school budget. I mean, it's part of the schools.
Well, I would just respond by saying if it's going to be in the school budget, then funds need to be provided to the school budget for that area and not cut from other categories in the schools to fund it.
And carryover money is used for various things. It is a budgeting, I don't want to say strategy. It is, I suppose that they're limited in what they can do to manage what they have to manage. And that over the years has been crucial for them to carry on their programs, their business, their organization. So I wouldn't want to take that away either. We depend on it too, actually. I mean, if we got rid of their carryover, we should get rid of our own carryover.
I think one thing that's happened here is the fact that we had to react to a situation. And so instead of being able to consider what we could do, and bringing all the folks to the table, that it impacts law enforcement, the two towns, the county, and the school system, we weren't able at this time to do that because we had to react to a situation that was presented to us. So in the future, to be proactive, we do have some time that we could look at, how do we want to go about this in the future and maybe have some kind of plan. But the situation we were put in sort of developed the way it was. So we're sort of stuck this year with it.
With that being said, the town did ask to meet with us. The town did ask to meet with us. And we asked them to at least have something on the agenda. They come back with 3 things. We never met with them.
I mean, didn't they say that we couldn't decide on a date or something? Or they eventually said, we don't want to meet with, something happened?
Well, that went back and forth, and then finally, it was a decision made for the mayor and the town manager to meet with the board chair and myself, and so that's how that wound up. But
And that was the decision the mayor said that their council agreed upon, is because of the complexity of getting everybody, the two boards together, for us to be easier for the mayor and the town manager to meet with myself and Mr. Meadows.
I think next time, just my opinion, next time, I don't care if it's Blacksburg or Christiansburg. If they want to meet, we need to meet with them. We're supposed to work together.
In fact, we probably should have a standing 1 or 2 meetings a year with them, just like we try to do with the school board, but let's put it on, and if someone can't make it, the rest of us will show up.
Right, I mean, that's what we agreed to. As long as we had a meeting lined up, as long as 4 members of this board could go, no one person would ever cancel another meeting. I mean, I've been on this board for 10 years, I think now. We've had one meeting with the town of Christiansburg. One meeting.
Any, I was going to say, budget questions?
Mr. Meadows or Ms. Hill, are there any other funding options that we can explore for the SRO expense?
Well, what I think the budget director and the deputy county administrator looked at were ways to accommodate that request within the current budget. The other opportunity that you have, but that has been set aside in special contingencies, is the 1 penny that we took, a half a penny from capital from the schools and the county, put that, which is about $1.2 million, in special contingencies that can be used for however the board desires to do that. We did that to try to create some flexibility should there be funding issues from the state for the schools and you want to provide that to schools. Should there be additional requests that were to come from the board related to county issues that you wanted to fund, or if you didn't want to do anything with that penny other than put it back to capital, you could do that as well.
Is that one-time money?
No, that is
Okay.
ongoing money.
Okay.
Okay, well, I have some questions on the budget that maybe Mr. Meadows or Ms. Hill could help me with. I'm looking at the, let's start off, you gave us a sheet with the breakdown of Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue. And then I'm looking at also page 18 in our big old book here, and I know it breaks it down and gives it us again. So we're looking at two different things. I'm looking at emergency services, and then I'm looking at volunteer fire and rescue, and that's the email breakdown you gave us, correct?
Yes.
I have a question on the expense or the addition for the emergency services, and it says on page 117, including soft billing of estimated about $100,000. Is that already included in that estimate of the $1.3 million for the?
We included it in the revenue, but the total cost is the $1.3 million.
Okay, but the
But we
100.
did include it in the revenue
On
side
the
as
revenue
well,
side.
yes.
Okay, so I was just trying to see if that was already included, or
It's
is that
over on
something? Okay, very good. And then on the, with the volunteer side, that you gave us the breakdown, let me get my notes here. I see that it gives us details on the funding requests that typically it looks like we give about 100, anywhere from 110 to 125 for these volunteer fire and rescue. Some of them give a little bit of breakdown of the request for ongoing cost of fuel, truck maintenance, that type of thing, day-to-day operations. Does this also include training for our volunteers?
The
Training costs.
description is only for the new request. It doesn't talk about their base funding, what they use their base funding for, but they do usually use, there is some money in their base that can be used for training.
Okay. And do we get any type of breakdown on those costs and those expenditures?
No, not at this time, we
No.
do not.
That is a recommendation that we've, that was part of the Fire Programs Board study, is that we start getting more information from the agencies on their fiscal status each year.
Okay. All right, so that was a recommendation, but we don't currently, and we don't do that. Have we ever did that?
Not in the, no.
Not to my knowledge, no.
I know how it is at Reiner. When we do our training, go somewhere to train, we take it out of our operation budget.
The department's budget,
Yeah, the
yes.
department funds it.
Okay, okay. Can we look to try to get some type of detailed breakdown?
If the board asks us to do that, we'd be glad to, yes.
Okay, all right. And then I guess that also, I think Mr. Supervisor King brought this up at the last meeting on the emergency services for the 448,000 plus for overtime. When we hire the 8 full-time employees and the 4, assuming we do the proposed 12 positions, would that cut that cost down for the overtime money?
It doesn't cut the overtime cost down because of the way the shifts work. There will be overtime cost when people take time off and that kind of thing. We discussed internally if it was better to provide overtime funds or part-time funds, and they could be used for either one. Because the people will already have been trained, it probably makes more sense to let people work overtime if they already are in the system and are willing to do that. But when staff takes time off and that kind of thing, that's when we'll need to have that coverage.
All right, that makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out if we.
And I assume that Michael will run up here if I say something that's not
Is
correct.
that correct?
We're
Okay.
looking, we're watching the back of the room.
Okay, very good. And then on page 21 with the 7% proposed raises for our employees, does that include, I'm assuming it does, all the proposed new positions, the 12 EMS,
Their positions would have that increase included in their base. Yes, ma'am.
The increase would be effective July 1st, so the people would be hired after that time, so it would be reflected in their starting pay.
Okay.
So we actually factored it in we gave some latitude in their starting pay amount.
Okay, all right, very good. So I just wanted to make sure they were all, that wouldn't be extra money that we hadn't budget for if we proposed to hire all those. Then I wanted to bring up at the board for consideration, as we go into tax season, there is a code section that Mr. McMahon, you sent me about the Commissioner of Revenue assessing personal property with very little value, and something for the board to consider, that there is a state code section 58.1-3001 that would allow the Board of Supervisors, when setting tax rates in the spring, to declare by ordinance that any tangible personal property of small value that results in tax less than $15 could be omitted from the personal property book, and no assessment by the Commissioner of Revenue. And this came up when some businesses last year were saying, do I have to write down every little stapler, and even though it's worth not 50 cents anymore, do I have to list all of those items? And so that was a tool that Marty investigated and found that there was a code section that could address that. If that would be consideration for this board.
I definitely like that idea.
Okay. So maybe we could look into that and then have that, I guess we need to do.
That can be amended later.
Yeah, I think the board's got to take an action. In essence, they're advising the commissioner that whatever that de minimis amount is, that the taxpayer does not have to report it on their return.
Can we, before we make any decisions about it, find out how much it actually represents in actual revenue? It's probably very small, but.
We'll look into that and see what kind of reports we can get.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. And then this might be, I know that we had some responses and we were still waiting on the school system, Montgomery County Public Schools, for some answers from our responses.
I do have those now. I can send those to you in a little while or first thing in the morning. I did get them this afternoon.
Very good, very good. And did that also include their funding request booklet with everything broken down? Yes, come
on up.
Dr. Bragan, come on up.
I sent a note to Dr. Bragan earlier that one of these days you'll get to come to a meeting over here and get out about 8 o'clock.
I'm a night guy. It's fine. In answer to that request, when I came on board, I was apprised of this booklet that we would send out to the school board with our funding requests, and it was something to which I wasn't familiar. So I initially shared with our central office team and Dr. Whitaker, who was overseeing finances, that I'd rather just focus on the numbers, put a presentation together on what we're requesting, why we want this amount of money, what we got last year, what does that entail as far as positions and things that we're asking for differently for this year, and that's what we did. So for our school board, we didn't put together that booklet as had been a past practice. If you're asking me to do that, I'll go back and look at that and we'll try to put something together. But I don't think it'd be appropriate, and I'm still finding my way in the Commonwealth here, to share something with y'all that I didn't give and we didn't provide to our school board. So we will look at putting something together akin to that if that's what the Board of Supervisors is requesting. Share it with our board first, and then share it with all of you if that's appropriate.
Sure, certainly. So typically, you all do share that with your school board, and then we ask for a copy of that. And it's not as thick as this, but it is in detail, and it breaks down everything and expenditures and gives us all good information on positions, and it just breaks down everything for us. So that would be very helpful, especially if we're looking at, it's budget season and everyone has to tighten their budgets and look at, where the dollars are spent.
Fair enough. We'll do it.
But the presentation that you gave us at the last meeting is what you're saying replaced.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke to the differences.
Yes.
But Chair Blevins, what additional specifics are you looking for?
Well, I mean,
They spoke to the differences, and they were on their slides.
well, I understand, but for the last couple of years, these books have been very helpful that detail, just like ours is detailed, that we can go back and look and review. So that's what I'm talking about. These, like we've got the funding request before, that breaks down everything so we could look at the expenditure. It's good information for taxpayers, where our dollars are going. It breaks it all down. So that's what I'm asking that we've had before and they've done in the last several years.
I mean, maybe something moving forward, but, certainly get Chair Blevins whatever information she's looking for, but a lot of that can be very standardized year to year, I would suspect, right? So hopefully it's not additional, above and beyond work.
They've done this for since I've been on the board. You've done them every year since I've been on the board. So I'm sure that school board members would probably want them to look at them too.
I'll take full ownership for that. That's when I came in and I saw that as a large task, as someone coming in new, trying to get acclimated to the budget. Dr. Whitaker had recently taken over the financial offices as well. So I made that decision. I shared with our school board, and they were okay with it. I'm hearing that you would like to have that more in-depth information, and we'll put something together. But I would request that you allow me to share that with the school board first, because I think that would be the best practice.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Have you heard anything else from the state level about any of your funding for next year? I know the answer is probably no, but I just thought I'd ask anyway.
Well, we actually had a Region 6 meeting last week, and the representatives from the VAS organization, the Virginia Association of School Superintendents, mentioned the possibility of the SOQ cap going away, which would be a significant increase in school funding. But, that's a wish list, fingers crossed. I have no idea. And like I said, I'm getting acclimated to how we do things here, so I don't know. I appreciate any support that we do get. Obviously, I do believe that what we asked for was appropriate and not really any fluff there, required to meet the needs of our 9,500 students. But you're the Board of Supervisors. What you give me is what we take, and we make it work.
Thank you.
While we have Dr. Bragan up here, do any supervisors have any questions or comments for him? Thank you. And Dr.
Thank you.
Whitaker for being here this evening. Sorry it was a long night.
No worries. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to come out of work session?
So moved.
A motion, and do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Fritchikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Items of consent. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fritchikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
New business, rezoning Eagle Construction of Virginia.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Fritchikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right. County Attorney Report.
Since we only have 15 minutes left without having to extend the meeting, so I have no report.
County Administrator.
Due to the lateness of the hour this evening, I have nothing to add as well. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Shepherd, Board Reports.
No report.
Supervisor Fitchikowski.
No report.
Supervisor King.
Just a quick thing. Sunday, we had a structure fire, and I want to tell Snoresville Volunteer Fire Department and City of Radford Fire Department and some of Montgomery County emergency service people was up there, and we do appreciate all your help, especially with the way the fire was yesterday. We had another structure fire this morning right down below my house. And we had Reiner, EMS from Reiner, some volunteers from Reiner EMS, Christiansburg, Blacksburg. Am I missing anybody, Tyler? But this just showed this morning how good we all work well together. Volunteers and paid people, and I hope it can continue. And I do appreciate everybody working together, and I appreciate all the support we get from emergency services, Montgomery County. I really do. That's all.
Thank you. Supervisor DeMott?
I have just a very brief report. I wanted to give you guys some updates on parks, and this is from the Parks and Rec meeting last week. A lot of people are asking about when the Reiner Park will be built. So construction-ready plans have been submitted for review by county staff and VDOT. After those are approved, it'll go out to bid. That may have already happened. They were kind of expecting approval to not take an extended amount of time. So they'll go out to bid, and then Mitchell's hope is to have construction complete this fall, with hopefully the grass taking root and maturing properly, so we can have kids playing on those fields in the spring. It'll be very dependent on how the grass grows, literally. Creed Field's lights have probably already been awarded since the meeting, or they were very close, within days of being awarded.
I don't know if they have or not, but I do know they're very close if they have.
Yeah,
I
he
just
said
turned the
within
computer
days,
off,
so
right?
that was on Thursday, so it's been 2. When the lights are awarded, they're going to be LED, they're going to be fully programmable from the office, so they'll be able to program up to 30 days of field use in the government center for those lights to go on and off. The only anticipated delay, and this is a potential real issue, is the availability of panels or other electrical parts to get those lights fully up and running. So he's trying to plan for that as best he can. And then I wanted to make note to all of you that when Frog Hopper Camp opened for this summer, it was full in 4 minutes. So just 4 minutes. And so that just says to me loud and clear that we have a huge unmet demand for that type of programming in the community. If we could fill it in 4 minutes, imagine how quickly we could fill twice as much, maybe 8 minutes. It could be a race to see who can get their kids in. So I just think it's important for this board to know how popular that program is and how highly demanded it is. And then for the big news, I would like to formally announce that I plan on seeking re-election this year. So for District G voters, they will be able to choose to re-elect me if desired. I'm not quite finished. I've got a few more years left to hopefully make some more progress on our goals for the county. So I'm very excited to be making the announcement to be seeking re-election this fall.
Supervisor Bone.
No report, thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd. I think I already got you, didn't I? Vice Chair Biggs.
I'm also going to announce tonight, along with Supervisor DeMott, that I also will be seeking re-election, or as I call it, rehiring, from my district to do this job that I love and I've loved for so long. And I'm looking forward to continuing to plan for the challenges of our county as we continue to grow, and really looking at our capital projects. And of course, there's one thing that I sort of have had on my mind for a while, and that is when we go to the Animal Care and Adoption Center and we finally connect the trail up down to the frog pond, and we have a dog park and all those nice amenities. But anyway, just want to make a formal announcement also that I will be seeking re-election in District F. Thank you.
Just again, a quick congratulations to the Jesse Peterman Memorial Library. Their 50th anniversary celebration was this past week. Last Friday, attended that. I do serve on the Montgomery Floyd Regional Library Board as their liaison, and it was great to hear that it started by just a few women with strong determination, the Floyd Women's Club that started that, and that was a great celebration. And also wanted to congratulate the participants in the New River Valley Government Leadership Academy, and that was, we had 6 local governments that had their employees participate in the 8-week program, and we're very excited and happy and are proud of the leadership that those employees exhibit, and just want to wish them congratulations on that completion. And with that being said, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you.